Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. The man makes his epic return once more into the nest. That's right. Brendon Nelson's come back. He's come back home. Come back home, Brendon. How's it? Welcome back into the nest, my guy. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing awesome. We're making moves. I mean, I don't know if they're great, but we're making moves. There is action happening. They're not just sitting there quietly, just sitting on cap space, I guess. So we've got some things to talk about with that today. We got a lot of stuff here, Brendon. We got to bounce through here all over the place. It's going to be like a bouncing ball. We're also going to discuss on the draft here a little bit as we get on the free agency, but I have a couple of things off the top that I think have become a little bit of front burner topics for us to discuss here as we kind of bear through this off season a little bit. And it's been a little bit of a tumultuous one, exciting, but tumultuous. Mm-hmm. First off, I did a stream last night. As the stream was kind of getting it was a very good debate. It was everybody was being, some nice everything, but there was a back and forth with my challenges on what to do with this DK situation. We've seen in the last couple of weeks alone, Davante Adams traded, big money given out to him. He resets the market over the top of DeAndre Hopkins. Then we see the trade of Tyreek Hill about a day and a half ago now. Where now again he resets the market at $30 million. This has reignited a debate that I've already seen for a while now within the Seahawks fandom. And I'd kind of like to know off the top of your head, as we now look at this through the lens of this rebuild, what you think the best trek is here for DK, and then what you think they're going to do with DK.
I have been pretty adamant all along that I think the right play is to keep Metcalf around. And I'm going to go ahead and stand by that. I think that he is young. Like, he's not that much older than some of these rookies who are coming out in this draft class. Like it's not like he came into the league when he was 25 and he's already middle-aged. This is somebody who can get better and likely will get better. There are obvious holes in his game that he has a chance to fix. Now, there are some things in his game that he may never fix. Like, he does turn like a tugboat sometimes, and I don't know if there's a ton he can do about that. But there are things he can do better, and it's very likely he will do those things better. And when I say that, I'm also including his general, I'll call it maturity level. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Most of those things get ironed out as you get older and you just get more mature. So I'm not too worried about that side of it. As for the money part of it, I know this last week has been kind of crazy because Tyreek got like $30 million a year. Davante Adams got like $26 million a year, I think. Longer term.
I think it's 28 and a half.
Okay, 28 and a half, yeah. But here's the thing. These deals are going to look fine in a couple of years, almost certainly. Yeah. Like they freak you out now. By the time we get there, they're not going to be that weird. I've talked about this before, but if the DirecTV NFL Sunday ticket deal goes through with Amazon, that adds a potential like $55 million per team to the cap. And that's on top of whatever the cap was going to go up anyway. So you could be looking at a cap that goes up by like 80 million next year. It's possible. And you're not going to see that kind of growth every year. But the point is, these deals that look insane right now are not going to look insane in a couple years. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I am for paying Metcalf if that's what you need to pay him to keep him around. The money you're going to be giving him, especially knowing that he is young, that he is going to get better, it's just what you have to do to be a viable football team in the modern NFL. Like, I promise you that in the very near future, you're going to see quarterbacks get 60, 65 mil a year. And that's going to seem freaky until the next year when they start getting 70 million a year. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. I think it's worth paying the price. I think it's 4 years, 100 million, it's 25 million a year, I think is what it would probably factor out to. But at the end of the day, I'm willing to pull the trigger on that deal and do it. I think you need to start building this team at certain points rather than take everything down that's of any value. There's a diminishing returns point I feel like you get to on that. And like you have said, I think it's a great point. There's still more potential here on this guy. He's young. We're looking at these draft guys coming out in this draft class, and I think that there's always a thing we should probably look for when we see a prospect and think about in more of the scope of, man, what he could be when you got the 21-year-old coming out, which is what DK was. When they're that young coming out, as opposed to DS Gridge coming out at 24, you probably can have a little more hope built into your projection for them about their upside of their game and where they're gonna be and where they're gonna go. Even once he's at 25, that there's maybe another level. So I'm glad to hear that with you. Where do you think the team will go? Do you think Schneider's Aiken. I mean, man, he already told me today. You saw the quote today, Brendon, right? Some quote today about, this wide receiver market's caught us off guard. Never saw it coming. Yeah.
Well, you could just keep him on his rookie deal. You have the franchise tag to use in the future if you have to. You have some leverage there. You don't have to make a definite decision at this moment. You could just say, okay, we're going to keep you on this rookie deal, and then we'll work on a deal as the season goes on. And if we can't find a deal, we always have the franchise tag. Like, you could play that game. So it's not like this is the moment of truth here.
That's why when people come to me and they say, well, he's going to make 30. Why wouldn't he want 31 million? If Tyreek wanted 30, why won't he ask 31? I say, number one, it's a leverage game. Tyreek had a little more leverage with the Chiefs because he's made his money, so he can maybe push a little bit harder on that one. Whereas with DK, he hasn't made his money yet. The Seattle's got the 3 years of club control. I think, Brendon, it factors out even with the franchise tag. I was running the numbers. It's like 3 years, $50 million if you were to do that with DK over the next 3 seasons. So does DK look at that and go, they could hard line me on 50, or I can go 4-100? Kind of makes 4-100 start to be a common ground that they could find pretty easily, I would think, at that point.
Yeah, and well, real quick here, one more thing on that. Bigger than even that, we keep hearing Carroll shoot down this idea of a rebuild, and then we had the Quandre Diggs quote yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Where he says, we're not rebuilding. And some people have theorized, well, maybe they're saying it's going to be a 1-year rebuild, like a short-term rebuild, but whatever. Carroll keeps shooting down this idea of a rebuild. So if you do that, and then you get rid of basically all your good players, because, Wilson, Wagner, now Metcalf, isn't the message there basically saying, Pete Carroll, am the greatest head coach who ever lived. I can win with bad players?
Mm-hmm.
Like, isn't that basically what you're trying to say? Yeah. So I don't like that on any end of it. Like I feel like the message there is just saying, I can win with bad players. I don't need good players to win. And that's definitely not true. That's not even close to being true. That's not close to true for any coach who's ever lived, and certainly not for Pete Carroll. So if you are trying...
Sorry, just with that point you just said, because it's an important point. Have they learned that less? Have they shown past signs, though, Brendon, that's not been a driver of them? Look at the way that they've spent their money. Look at the way they've drafted, that they never trade up in a draft, for instance, to get high-level talent. Does this organization show signs of being that type of organization who recognizes that?
I mean, on some level, you have to recognize it somewhat, right? And again, this is a guy who's young. You look at a guy like Wilson, probably past his prime, probably had his best days in 2019 and 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And the first half of 2020, and then maybe you roll a little 2018 in there as well. He was really good that year.
Mm-hmm.
But DK is somebody who is not at his prime yet. He's 25, I think, something like that. 25. I believe he's 25. So yeah, to me, that is a scenario where you do have to go, okay, I think this is the guy we need to pay here. I don't know about you, but for me personally, I don't think there's any receiver in this upcoming draft I would take over Metcalf, even at their reduced age. Like, I know the top guys are Garrett Wilson. Like, to me, I'd rather have Metcalf at 25 than Garrett Wilson at 23 or whatever.
The trope, these draft tropes come out, Brendon, and the draft trope this year is this is the one I'm hearing every year now. Well, every draft is stacked with receivers, so don't pay them. Just they're always coming out stacked. They're always coming. Yeah, kinda. But when you have a guy, to your point, that's the difference maker guy, that's a head above that, you do want to probably recognize that and try to pay that. And again, people come back and they'll say, well, the Packers didn't want to pay Devontae. Well, the Chiefs didn't want to pay Tyreek. No, Packers were going to match the same offer for Devontae. He went to the Raiders, and Tyreek was a matter of, they just didn't want to go to 30 million. There's not to say that maybe the Chiefs were not fully willing to go to 27.5 or 27, which I think is probably likely. They just didn't want to go up to 30 with his age at nearly 30 years of age. So
yeah. And there's one more consideration with the Tyreek thing. The Chiefs have Andy Reid. This is his thing. This is his bag. Yeah. He made NFC title games 4 years in a row with Todd Pinkston as his best receiver. He is an offensive guru. This is kind of his thing. Give me less talent on offense, I will make it work. I can win games with AJ Feely and Kevin Cobb and
Freddie Mitchell.
Freddie Mitchell, James Thrash, guys who couldn't even make a team after they left Philadelphia.
Hank Biscat.
Wasn't he the guy who was dating the porn star? Yeah, I remember him. So we don't have Andy Reid here. Okay, the talent level of our players on offense really matters. We have a second-year offensive coordinator, and a coaching staff that is heavily leaning towards defense. So I think it's a different circumstance.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're in that place of it. I hope they do pay it. I think he's going to get itchy with it. And I'll tell you, Brendon, it doesn't inspire confidence when I hear my general manager caught off guard by the market. Your job is to forecast the market. Your job is to know what's going to be happening, not to react to it going, like somebody in a horror film that somebody's jumped out of a room at a mountain. Brendon, like, no, you're here to know that this is where the receiver market's going and act justly from it, not do this. Well, golly gee, we didn't know it was going to be like this.
Yeah. You know what that kind of made me think of, though? I remember when I was little, I had a grandmother who would take me to McDonald's sometime and then freak out at the prices because she grew up during the Great Depression.
Right.
And, she even after the Great Depression, she was alive in the 50s, the 60s. So she goes to McDonald's and she looks at these prices. She's like, oh, my God, are you and it's like that's the normal going rate for food these days. Like that to me, that's what it is. It's like you can't just constantly say, oh my God, I can't believe these guys are getting all this money. It's like that's how it goes these days.
This is robbery. This is it is what it is. That's sorry. You drafted a great game-changing talent who's just starting to scratch the surface on his ability. Just pay him and let's go. And not like that. Brendon, they have $130 million for next year's cap, right? No dead money is going to be on the books because they've barreled it all off this cap. So you're going to have nothing but money to spend. You got to spend it on something at some point or another too with this. So I won't blame too much, but it's an interesting debate because Brendon, there are a lot of people in Seahawks fandom. I got to acknowledge them. And I think that they are thinking with a certain amount of intelligence on this, which is just stack as many picks as you can. Just if you're not good to go now, this might as well just barrel up, get as many of these picks, put them all into a pile. And I think that I can get where they're coming from with that, but just not in this case. All right, quick question on this with Baker Mayfield. Neither you nor I like Baker Mayfield, right? We're pretty much we would not like him being added at the end of the day with this. Doesn't make a lot of sense to us. I'm sorry, I don't want to speak for you. Maybe tell me what you have to come around to Baker Mayfield. Brendon's on the Baker bus.
No,
Baker went Baker bus.
No. Commercials would be fun though. Those Lumenfield commercials would be nice for a year.
Yeah, that is. He'd become checking in on you in the broom. He'd have you in the broom closet or something.
Yeah.
Talk trash more.
Yeah. I don't think Baker's the guy, but a lot of the things that I'm hearing do indicate that the Browns are not getting anything for him. They may have to pay somebody to take him away.
Yeah.
I even heard a rumor that what they were going to have to give away was so significant, they might just straight cut him and eat that 18 million dead because that's, I mean, he's just taking up a roster spot right now.
Right. Well, my question on this was going to be sorry, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
Right. So Baker, the player, no, but Baker, the buyout, the bailout package is a little more appealing to me. If you want to bail the Cleveland Browns out on that $18 million and get something back for it, sure.
So, okay, that was going to be my question on this then, Tia, was we acknowledge we're not going to take on the 18 million with us giving you a pick back. But if you want to give us back what's the draft pick you need to take 18, understanding we're about 17 million right now under the cap with an ability to create some more cap space, obviously to fit him under, but you still have 7 million in draft picks you have to sign, so really de facto right now you're sitting on 9 million. You need to create basically 9 million to fit him under at that point.
I think that's pretty trivial to do. We still got Jason Myers on this roster, still got LJ Collier on this roster, still got Chris Carson too, by the way, and I don't know where we are with him right now, but he's still kicking around out there. If you want me to take on that full salary, I'm gonna need like a third round pick. That's a lot of money for a guy who I don't believe in, and clearly nobody believes in because nobody wants him.
That was my value too. Third round sounds about right to me because you're going to have to clear some space. To your point, you got 4 million with Jason, $1 million with LJ, so you're still about 4 million away from where you need to be to fit him under. So there's still some more moves and probably restructures you're going to have to do at that point to make it happen. As well as at that point, Brendon, you've done nothing to address the tackle situation, which we'll get to in a second. But hey, a third round pick in a future draft ain't bad. And if you leave next year and he gets paid somewhere on even a mid-tier deal, that's a compensatory pick potentially if you want to play that game as well. Just saying.
Yeah, we used to play that game a lot, but it's been a while. So yeah, I'm willing to get back on that wagon.
Many years ago, we used to be masters of that game, Brendon. It was awesome. I remember those days with the 3-4 compensatory picks. That was amazing.
Yeah. Well, one other scenario that has been proposed in my Discord with the Baker thing as a counter would be like, what if we paid half of Baker's salary and the Browns exchanged third-round picks with us. So we would get a slightly higher third-round pick. Something like that. What about that?
I don't like it because I'm so down on paying value to Baker on this 1-year rental for a guy that, to me, I'm not saying he's bad. There's other cord like a Jimmy Garoppolo is much significantly to me worse than Baker Mayfield even. But I don't think it's worthwhile on a 1-year rental when you're in the middle of a rebuild like we are. Where Brendon, frankly, where our tackle situation is alone right now with no hope to really significantly improve it, I can't sign off on a trade like that. I just can't. They're not going to improve this offensive line. That's the much we know. It might be as good as it was last year, but they're not going to improve it beyond what it was last year. And
Okay.
that limits us to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's pair this for a little bit to free agency because we did get the last of, I think, of our signings. The money's been basically enough. They can do a couple more moves, but we're past wave 1. We're past wave 2. We're into wave 3 of free agency. Before we jump into kind of these guys and names that happen, give me a general thought on your takeaways from high level view on this free agent period with our Seahawks.
Given the fact that we don't have a quarterback right now, and I don't think we will, there's really nobody left, at least for the moment. It's been a pretty soft free agency, and I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I will say there is some part of me that kind of wishes we didn't do anything and we just roll over 50 mil in cap space to 2023, but that's not going to happen as long as Pete's calling the shots. I think we know that that's not the way he does things.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe in a few years we can try to execute some plan like that. But knowing that Pete has his, win forever mantra, I'm pretty fine with it. I'm actually pulling up a list of the things that we've done since we last spoke on my channel. I think the day after we last did a show, Quentin Jefferson was picked up. And I guess that's okay. I don't really have a ton to say about it. It seems fine. Played pretty well last year for the Raiders. And he has some experience here. I think he'll be an okay fit in the 3-4, but obviously nothing remarkable, nothing long-term there. I don't think he's going to be part of the next great Seahawks team. We released Hyder and Dunlap, which Dunlap I expected. Hyder I'm a little disappointed about. I thought he was going to be a good fit for this D. I kind of wish he was still here.
And he wouldn't sign with San Francisco, so they're going to fit him in, and he'll go right back into the rotation and be a solid part of that rotation for them. So I was surprised by that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We also gave some money to Kyle Fuller I think I figured it out. I think I figured this out though. I think that Will Dissly and Kyle Fuller performed some like assassination missions for Pete Carroll in the offseason, and Pete needed to pay them, but he was like, I can't just give you this money. I need to give it to you in a way where, the IRS can tax it. I need to make it legal.
That's
so I'll just launder it to you via your NFL contracts. And obviously Dissly did a lot more than Fuller did, but that's the only way I can make this make any sense.
I'm with you. I'm down on this offseason, frankly. Soft is a good way to put it. Soft to me is what it's looked like. Obviously, with you, I would have rather have been able to bend some of this money over into future cap and call it a day. But they're telling us they're going to try this competitive thing, which I don't see how you're going to be competitive with this roster you've just built. I mean, Quentin Jefferson comes in. I understand he sets career highs in tackles for lost tackles, sacks, quarterback hits. Yeah, that's great. Okay, fantastic. You guys. Still at the end of the day, he's been here. We know what he is. He's a guy. He's okay. He gives you a little bit, but I mean, we're trying to just stack up a bunch of B- players across the defensive line and hope that that's going to create a ferocious pass rush. I don't see it. And without a ferocious pass rush, this great defense you're trying to rebuild, Brendon, doesn't go anywhere, in my opinion, no matter how much you're going to pay safeties. It's not going anywhere. And I'm a little bit perturbed by that fact of it. I still do think they're lying to us a little bit in that this is really a rebuild to some degree, 1 year rebuild, 2 year. They can't tell that to the fans, can they, Brendon? I mean, they can't come out and say, we're rebuilding after you just dealt Wilson, after you just released Bobby Wagner. Wouldn't that go over like a turd in a punch bowl?
They could tell it to me. I'd be cool with that.
I would
At least
too.
it'd be real. It would be honest. I mean, and realistically, you should be rebuilding. You've got 40 million dead this year. You've got more dead money than any other team in the league this year. You don't have your quarterback is Drew Lock. Your tackles are Stone Forsythe and Jake Curhan. You should be rebuilding 100%. Like, I understand that some fans are not going to accept that. They don't even really process that. But I would much rather watch an honest rebuild than a team that is just going out there and losing for no purpose.
Mm.
Like, that's what frustrated me so much about last season. It was losing. It was a bad season, but it was in service of nothing. If we had started a rebuild, at least the losing would be for something like a first round pick or player development. But no, the last half of the year last year, me and a lot of people on my channel were saying we should start Stone Forsythe the rest of the year. We should see what he has. This is a great opportunity, and we never did it. Never, ever did it. Didn't even do it at the end of the season when we were eliminated.
Yeah.
So it was all in service of nothing. You don't even get to see stuff like that. So, yeah, I would personally love it if the franchise could just go, yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a process. You're going to have to give us some time. Not that I trust these guys to use that time effectively, but at least that would make sense to me. I understand they're trying to sell their season tickets, but is it really the right move to sell your season tickets by lying to your fans? Like, that doesn't seem right to me.
It doesn't to me either. I'm with you. I wish they would just come out and say it, and I would embrace it. And I've said if once I see this as a rebuild, I'll take the lumps and be patient with it. But I don't like this because I think Brendon and them taking this little middle approach. To your point earlier about it would have been nice to roll over this cap space. Okay, maybe 50 million is aggressive, but is 15 aggressive?
Mhm.
I mean, isn't that feasible in a year? I know you got the dead money, but just 15 million over to next year. Just flop it on over. And let people know what time it is. But because they're playing a little bit of this public relations stunt of, well, we still want to sell tickets. Well, we still want them to think we're kind of trying, but we still want to let them know that we're kind of in it. That part I can't get as much behind with this sort of, well, we can't just come out and just fully, well, no, you can. And you could be inhibiting your ability to really fully rebuild this by doing this stuff. It's not going to wreck it. It's not going to destroy it, but you could be inhibiting it a little bit down the road with this kind of approach, doing this, let's cut the middle path.
Yeah, and again, what happens when you tell your fans we're not rebuilding and then you go out there and win 4 games this year, which could easily happen with the roster in its current state?
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot of very, very angry fans. You're going to have a lot of empty seats at the stadium. How is that good? Like I don't understand why you think that's good.
I think it speaks to the fact that they know that there's no way while Jody Allen is owning this football team that they're going to be fired. That's what I think.
Hmm. Yeah,
I
I mean, we're going to have to work really hard as fans to make that happen.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. Because your point's right. They would think, wait, think this 2 steps ahead, Carol. You're in nearly the toughest division in football. You're not in a position to compete with this roster, but you're telling people you are. Then you're going to fail out again a year after dumping Russell Wilson and Wagner, who knows what those guys go on to do that next year, which might make it even look worse. But they're unfazed by that, Brendon, I think, because sitting down with Jody, it's like she said, okay, in a couple of years, we're going to sell this team. And in that time, I'll sit tight with you guys and we'll just ride and do what you guys can do. Don't spend too much money. Don't spend too much money.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, then like I said in last week's show, we really are along for this ride that has nothing to do with football, and that's depressing. That's really depressing. Now, it's not nearly as bad as the situation the Cowboys are finding themselves in, because at least we're going to get rid of these guys in 3 years.
Yeah.
Cowboys are stuck with Stephen Jones for the next 40 years, and he's proven how incompetent he is already. But it still sucks for these next few years.
Oh, it is. It's going to be a little bit of a bloodletting, Brendon. We're going to fight, and maybe we get lucky. There's always the chance you get lucky with this stuff, and things break your way, and something weird happens. But boy, they're not setting things up necessarily to prime the deck either.
Right.
What did you think about the Quentin Jefferson signing?
All I can really say is that it's fine, I guess. There's just not much to say about it. It's a nice little stopgap solution for the defensive line. He's a decent enough player. He'll do all right, but I'm still wondering if the Akeem Hicks thing is on the table or not, because we keep signing Desai guys, but we haven't signed the actually valuable Desai guys. So still wondering if that's on the table or not. We let a couple of defensive linemen go now. Benson Mayo was released too, by the way. So
it's true. You have lightened it out quite a bit.
You could still get him, but I mean, Quentin Jefferson is certainly not moving the needle.
No. Did you like the Penny signing?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, the Penny signing was next. Yeah, I did like it. Maybe it was like $500,000 more than I wanted, but who cares? Like the cap's about to go way up. Who gives a rip? Yeah. And it's a 1-year deal. Yeah, I like the Penny deal. I part of me wishes it was 2 years, because I have a feeling he's going to do well this year, because we're just going to run the ball 50 times a game because our quarterback is Drew Lock.
Yeah.
But I like it. I'm excited for him, and I want to see what he can do. One thing I really liked is how many times in his press conference he said he was excited to be back in Seattle, because that's not a sentiment that we see from a lot of players lately, it seems like.
No. And I wanted to ask you on this. This is a kind of a thing I've been turning over in my mind in regards to this. It's nice to see he's doing that and being Rashad. There's a couple guys actually saying, "Oh, I want to be here," and DK is giving some signs of. You saw the thing about them. Somebody out was trying to recruit him in Kansas City, and he's like, "Hey, the door's open, DK," and he's like, "Well, you better shut it," because indicating a little bit that DK was going to remain here and he's loyal and he's
Yeah.
going to remain. And it's good to see that in certain stuff. I'm starting to wonder a little bit about. We have a player friendly environment. And it's so odd as player friendly as we are, Brendon, and we've paid a lot of guys on third contracts. And there's times you got to be cold blooded at times as an organization, but if you really look at it, they do pretty solidly by guys. Most of the guys, we've had a lot of guys get through the end of their contracts here and not have that. Oh, well, they cut him the second that things went bad. He was out. Now it was all that they were going to do. They've let him, even Bobby in this deal. He's still the last year of his deal, and they cut him early to go get his money before the free agent period. So they gave him the chance to do that. As well as Brendon, I think even stuff like the injury thing. I think part of the reasons we have problems with injuries as much as we do is I think Coach Carroll is very conservative in his approach, and he lets these guys really get fully rested before they come back. But yet, are we getting those returns back from being this player-friendly environment? Do you think, and this isn't a Carroll thing as much, Brendon, as this is an organizational thing, because we are looking with a little eye to the head of things. Do you think it's better as running an organization with more maybe a Harbaugh type, or with these modern age kids, get them more of the player friendly type, or has it seen its day maybe a little bit as far as the benefits of that?
Oh yeah. I can't stand how soft this organization seems sometimes. You can't. Tom Cable would have been fired about 2 to 3 years before he was actually fired from this team on any other team, I think, because Carroll did not want to fire him, and he basically needed a gun to his head to actually fire him, because the offensive line was terrible in 2015, 2016, 2017. Then he finally gets him out of here. So Ken Norton should have been fired 2 or 3 years ago, but instead on this team, he just kind of gets to hang around and collect a paycheck, and finally gets pushed out now because this team actually had a bad season and somebody needs to fall on it needs to be somebody's turn in the barrel. Excuse me. But yeah, of course, I definitely don't like how soft this organization is sometimes. It definitely doesn't sit well with me. I would like to see the next coach, whoever he is, be a little bit more of a disciplinarian. I don't need like a Tom Coughlin. I don't need something like that. That's excessive. I don't know if that works in the current, with the way things are right now in the NFL or any sport. But I would definitely like to see a new organizational attitude when we get to the Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or whoever owned Seahawks in a few years.
Yeah, I agreed. I'm in the same boat. I'm not saying you get the, like you said, the Coughlin or maybe a Harbaugh type where they're just going to grind people all the way up. But I do think it's also like you're going to pay the price on that. And some guys are going to leave because they're going to turned off by it. Some people don't want to sign up for that but then it doesn't seem like we get the offset of that with the player friendly coach. Like, for instance, you'd think that this would be more of a place people would want to come play. But at the end of the line, who are we recruiting in the last 4 or 5 years, despite having 2 different separate times where we had $50 million in cap space to spend? What's the big free agent signing over those 2-year period? $100 million we spent in free agent over those 2 years. In just I think it's the last 2 of the last 3 years. And what is your biggest, most major signing of that? Quandre Diggs. That's the biggest deal that you've given out of all that money. And to me, I go, we couldn't have recruited with all of Pete's, like going to people, they go to the Pro Bowl and he's voted most coach they most like to play for, right? All this hullabaloo about this. But yet you can't even get a top-notch guy in 2 years, the $100 million to spend. Like, what's the value of it almost? And again, it's not a Carroll thing as much as is there a value in that player-friendly kind of atmosphere you create? There's value. I'm not saying there isn't, but is versus the other side of it in just being a little more of like the Patriot way of things.
Yeah, I completely agree. I forget the last 4 to 5 years. It's been a decade since we brought in a big-time free agent, really. At least relative to where the market was. Sidney Rice and Zach Miller, that was kind of an off-season party we threw. I think 2 years later, we got Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill. Those guys were not expensive, by the way. Those guys came with contracts that were probably well below what they could have gotten if they only cared about money. They actually wanted to go somewhere where they could have won. So that was different too.
They could have. They also signed at the end of free agency though too, where they were waiting on their deals and they weren't getting it because that was the year that there was the uncapped year that was coming with the lockout hanging over the situation, and it caused some issues. And with, I mean, look, Sidney Rice and Zach Miller, you brought them in here, but you paid them top of the market prices to do it. It wasn't Carroll's recruiting or his player friendly environment that brought them in, or the winning culture at that time. It was dollar bills, and it's again just my wondering is like that's it's again one of those tropes brought out there of, oh well, you have the player friendly coach and it gets around the league that's fun to play for, and then they all want to come there, and it's we got to see a little more proof of that to really think that's because it happens once every blue moon doesn't make that a rule of thumb with the situation. It seems just from my stand.
And speaking of all this, can we talk about how Trent Brown used us like a glory hole?
Oh my God, he did. And then just threw us on the bed and said, all right, but be back here in 3 years. That was another one of those, again, to my point, Brendon, you're just speaking right to my point on this, with is just like, well, if you're this great place to come destination, guy's here for 3 days for you to sit here and recruit him and sell him on the dream. And the whole time he's just selling you for the ex-lover. He's just wanting to go back to her the whole time. He's just trying to get her jealous. That's all he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And then
by the way, the same contract that Will Dissly got. Basically, you paid a backup tight end what New England just paid a top 5 right tackle. Pretty much exactly.
It's again where it's like trying to find optimism in this offseason. I go, oh, well, at least we're rebuilding. Or at least we're rebuilding, Brendon. You know what I mean? I can't look at how they're spending the money. I'm hopeful maybe that's the drafting will be better, but that's the part I go to where it's like how to be optimistic about this, watching the way the money's spent. And now you're spending like $6 million more at the safety position than anybody else in football. And boy, you just go, okay, I guess we'll see if this can work. But it is hard to find optimism without when you look at other teams making moves and seemingly spending the money smarter, Brendon. Not to mention, by the way, with this, we haven't talked about it. We've again back in the 1 and 2 year deal mode of things. So they've eaten up all of that cap space with the 1 and 2 year deals because you don't have any 4-year deals to spread out full 4 years of the bonus money equally apportioned all the way across the board. So just that many less players that you're able. Now we're tapped out. No more cap space. You're tapped.
Yeah, and to be clear, I want to say I don't have a problem with that if you're rebuilding. If you're trying to just hold it over until you get to that future year when you have the quarterback and you're ready to actually dive in. That's fine. I like Teron Armstead signed for $15 million a year, which is way less than I thought he was going to get. But I didn't want him at this point. What's he going to do? Go out there and protect Drew Lock? No, that doesn't make sense. I don't want the big time free agents at this point. The problem is more we haven't gotten the big free agents in over a decade. Mm-hmm. When we had a quarterback, when we had a team that maybe could have made a push for a Super Bowl, and it never happened.
And it's pertinent because we're talking about maybe a year from now trying to swing these strokes and hoping to hit something out the park with a couple of signings. And if you haven't been able to bring them in the last 7 or 8 years, even in the times you've had the money to spend, should we have necessarily a lot of optimism we're going to be able to land those guys, or we're going to have to just grossly overspend to bring people in? We're going to throw them 10 million more than nobody else. And they're okay. I can't turn that down. And that very well may be where we land with this, Brendon, which again is just,
Yeah.
It's a yeah. I've got a question for you here too in a second about this approach they're taking this offseason. Let me just get a couple to see if we got a couple donos here. Paul Third with a $2 donation. Thank you, Paul. Says DK is the new Dez. Let's not be like Cowboy fans.
Well, Dez ran like a 4.740, so I don't think the player comp is really lining up.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Dez was a great receiver for a little while, but I'm not really seeing the comparison here. Dez was somebody who would just use his size and his strength to go over people. That's really not DK's game. DK's a speed demon.
Yeah, to me, I keep coming back to this. I thought last night, it's Terrell Owens to me. If you go and you look at Terrell Owens' tape with the 49ers when he's young, right about before he moved around, just look at his early tape, especially, very much to me of shades of DK Metcalf. They move similarly, similar game, similar like tiny, but the drop stuff comes up. Like Terrell Owens had drops problems throughout the course of his career, but he was still a very good, great receiver, Hall of Famer. And to your point, he's much faster. Dez did not run anywhere near the 40 that DK ran. And I just kind of, they're little different players with it, but I don't think it gets you. Another thing with Dez is, didn't he have some off the field stuff with him too, where it wasn't just a matter of other than
Yeah.
people making jokes about DK with the OnlyFans foursome thing, like what has he done off the field that's been bad at all? He's been a model citizen, by all accounts. And I don't think anybody in Dallas would have told you that Dez was necessarily a model citizen. I'm not trying to throw shade at him.
I think there was a point where Jerry Jones basically was holding all of his money, and he would have to go to him for like an allowance because
Sounds right.
I remember there was a time when that was going on. I think he was the guy who the Dolphins GM asked, "Is your mama who boy?" His
Oh, that's the Miami guy you're talking about. That was Ireland, the Miami general manager asked him if his mom was a
Dez or a crack something or other. I'm not going to go any further than that, but I remember that. That was really funny.
and not Thursday Dez. He was a good player, but again, if you have a guy come in the league, like you said, 4.7, and then you get him 5 years in the league and tread taken off the tires, and now he's into that 4.8, 4.85, and now you're going, you're not even able to kind of halfway separate. DK goes from being 4.3 to 4.4 in 3 years. He's still going to be damn fast, and he's still going to be blowing past people. So it's, the margin's better on those. This is why Deshaun Jackson is still playing in this league, because he maybe has lost some speed, but he's still really, really fast, in addition to that. I did some numbers on this, Brendon. I want to throw this out to you. Okay. We basically can both see now the money you have spent this offseason, bringing in Desai, the moving over of coaches, the defensive coordinator, the moving on from Russ, not even understanding that there's a tackle position on your football team, I guess. This team's going defensive heavy now, Brendon. I think we both agree on this. They're going to try to zig while the whole rest of the league is zagging. And I ran these numbers. I'm going to throw this out to you real quick. We got 31 teams in the NFL. I've got 22 teams running an offensive heavy system. That's about a 30% rate. So on the head of it, you go, okay, we're good. Maybe we're good here. Everybody's going this way. And rather than go upstream like everybody else is, we'll go downstream. And let's see, we'll come back around and we'll walk our way in later. Okay, so maybe it's easier at that point getting the playoffs. But, Brendon, I then looked at the playoffs, for instance, last season. And if you look at the playoffs last season, 12 of the 14 teams were offensive-driven teams. Meaning you're going from not only, you'd hope it'd be better, right, Brendon? You go, okay, less teams, maybe the percentage is better for playoffs, but it's actually 15%. 30% for the amount of teams in the league that are just running defensive-sided ball, 15% of teams last year in the playoffs that were just defensive-driven teams. Whoa, just that information, what do you take away kind of from that data in general terms, would you say, as far as, is this going to work? Is this the right way to go? Is this a feasible way to go?
I don't think that it is at all. I think this league is clearly headed towards a more offensive direction. And I feel like, especially recently, what you're seeing is that even with a great defense, and often even with a mediocre or lackluster offense, you're seeing a lot of games come down to the last few minutes where you have one team ahead by a couple points, or maybe the score is tied, and one team has to go drive down the field to either win or tie the game, and either they do or the defense stops them and they don't. And I feel like over and over again, we see those offenses perform in those instances because they have the extra down, because they don't have to worry about balance, because they know they're going to be, they don't really run the ball very much in those situations. The Super Bowl is a great example, right? The Bengals defense plays great that whole game, but at the end, when the Rams needed it, they were able to use that extra down that they have on that last drive to move down the field. They didn't run the ball at all on that drive, except for I think maybe one play. And to me, that circumstance is just kind of a microcosm of what you're looking at in the NFL right now. It's all about what you do at the end of close games on offense. Can you execute on offense to go win the game or tie the game? And when I looked at this a few years ago, I was like, constantly the team with the ball last wins.
Yeah.
The team with the ball last wins. So to me, this is about the offense. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl a couple years ago because Mahomes led those 2 touchdown drives late in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the Rams this year, they won the Super Bowl because Stafford led them down the field on a touchdown after really not having a very good game. So no, I don't think this defense first philosophy is the right thing.
And to your point on both of those, on some of those comparisons you're making as well, That Chiefs team, for instance, is who are they going up against? The fearsome foursome of that 49er defense. And that defense as a whole, which was their strength of their team that got them to the Super Bowl. So here's the counter on that, right? Which is that, well, you'll build the defense so strong, they'll stop that offense. But to your examples, again, the super offense beats the super defense. Or to take another example from last season, maybe the best game of all last season in the NFL was probably that Buffalo Bill Kansas City Chief game in the playoffs. And the Buffalo Bills were, for a large part of the year, the best defense in the entire NFL, one of the best defenses at the very least. And at the end, they couldn't do a darn thing to stop Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. There was no answers multiple times over in stopping him. No blitz they could drive, no player that could make a play. So again, just to my eyes, and I guess what you're saying to your eyes on this, it looks like it's hard to do it this way. And maybe they're carving out some individual approach that no one else saw or sees this opening in the gap as far as a competitive advantage you can get by going this route. But I agree with you, man. It comes down to the last portions of the game. All football does. Doesn't matter the era you play in, right, Brendon? Doesn't matter. We're talking about this being the modern era, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the time of Elway. Go on back. It's you need your quarterback at the end in the 2-minute drill sometimes to be able to get the field. And if you're we put all our resources in the defensive ball. We don't really have the offensive line that can pass protect to get that done. And we don't have quite enough playmakers on the outside because we try to run the ball. So it's like, why have 3 or 4 receivers when that's kind of like a waste, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like a tough approach, man. It seems like a tough approach.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite examples of that all time is, do you remember a few years ago in the playoffs, Eagles-Bears? It was the year the Bears had the number 1 D. And this was one of those years where Wentz got hurt at the end and Foles was the quarterback. The Bears, with the number 1 defense in the league, were up against the Eagles at home with their backup quarterback needing a stop to win the game, and they couldn't do it. Nick Foles leads the team down the field, throws the touchdown to put the team ahead. And then the Bears, with Mitch Trubisky, lead a game-winning drive the other way, and then the field goal, double doink, etc. But to me, that game is another great microcosm of what I'm talking about. A backup quarterback like Nick Foles carves up the number 1 defense in the league, partially because he gets an extra down to work with, and that's such a huge deal to work with. But the point I'm trying to get to you, and this is something that you kind of said too, I'd say about half of the games that are played in the NFL come down to that final 5 minutes where either you drive down the field to get a score and you win, or you don't and you lose.
Yeah. And as a heavy running football team, you can't often go to we're so good about running the ball. Yeah, sometimes you don't have the time to run that ball in that time period. So now it's your quarterback's hands, and what you got that quarterback position to get that done. And they're seemingly telling us, no, we don't have to necessarily do it that way. We can do it this old, which, I mean, again, Carroll and Schneider do have the blueprint, right? They've got the 2012, 13, 14 blueprint on their hands where they go, well, 2012, 13, 14, say differently. Okay. I mean, you had a clutch quarterback at that time on Wilson, though, a little bit, right? You did have that guy that was the rare game manager who was also that magic man at the end of football games that could make that drive when you needed it. I don't know if you can count on finding that guy again with those two kind of skill sets, right? Where he can be both game manager, but then when you just need him to turn it on and be magical at the end, he can do so too as well. It's kind of a stretch to say you're going to go find that again.
Right. And maybe part of the reason why you move off Wilson is because he hasn't been doing that lately. Like I said, his last game-winning drive was, I think, against the Vikings in Week 5 of 2020. And he's had opportunities, and it just hasn't really panned out. So, I mean, when that is such a big part of winning and losing games in the NFL, maybe you looked at that and you went, well, if you're not giving me that anymore, then I think it's time for us to try to find someone who can.
Certainly, too, if you're saying we're not sure if you're elevating the talent. That's the big question there, too. When you're paying these quarterbacks $45-50 million, it's a valid question to ask, but it's one that's got to be answered by the organization if they're going to pay that price, which is, do you elevate the talent around you by us paying you this money? Because we're not going to be able to elevate the talent around you in necessarily assembling the roster because we're not going to have as much resources to do that with. It's pretty logical to me on this. And I think the answer is, they came to that conclusion of not thinking it could. Denver might prove this wrong. Denver might show, but Seattle certainly from an organizational standpoint said, no, we don't think so. Because Brendon, this trade was really driven by that as much as anything, that year from now when you're going to have to pay Russ in that $50 million if you were going to do it.
Yeah.
Not to get us off track there, but
right. So there were a couple of things that happened with the free agency yesterday. If you want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, let's dive into it. We got some Coleman talks. Let's go.
Yeah. So Justin Coleman comes back home, 1-year deal, probably I'd say somewhere between $2 million and $3 million, probably. Nothing wrong with that. I don't really have much to say about it. One thing I'll say about this, and this is going to lead into what we're talking about next, because these are all 1 year and 2 year deals, we can take best player available in the draft pretty consistently because we're not married to a whole lot, I feel like. Like you can give Justin Coleman and Akeem Hicks 1 year deals and still spend that number 1 pick on a corner if you feel like corner's BPA. You didn't marry yourself to Rashad Penny, so you can take Breece Hall in the 2nd round. You didn't marry yourself to any offensive lineman, so you can take Linderbaum if he's there, or Cross, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I look at a deal like what we just gave Coleman, which we know is a 1 year deal, then we don't have to worry about saying, we can't take this guy because we married ourselves to that guy. Doesn't matter that guy's not as good. We're stuck. We already gave him money. The only guy we married ourselves to this offseason is Quandre Diggs. And that's fine. He's one of the best safeties in the league. I don't hate that. It's dubious, but yeah, I kind of like the flexibility this affords us.
I do too. And I rail on my theme of the offseason being learn your lessons for this organization, learn where you've gone wrong, correct it. One of the places I would have pointed to this in recent years is that you've not, since Justin Coleman's left, put the appropriate amount that you need to into the slot corner position. I mean, maybe Marquise Blair is going to turn into a demon over there, but Ugo Madi's not been good enough. And he was really bad last year. You needed to upgrade that position. They've addressed it 2 times over now with Artie Burns and with Justin Coleman. So there's actual competition there. It's not just you're saying it's your job. Go do it. You're going to be the guy. And if you don't do it, we don't have anything behind you. Well, actually, you've now doubled up there with a little bit of the depth, which I really like at that position, because the slot corner has slowly become that. When Coleman was running back in 18, and I think you would agree with this, he's probably been the best slot corner for us in the last 10 years here in that year that he played. Who else you got?
I was a big Walter Thurman III fan. I thought he was really nice.
Okay, we're going Thurman. Okay, the last 6 years, I'll give you that.
Yeah. He was probably better than Lane. So, I liked Amadi in 2020. I'll say that. 2021, I thought he took a big step back. Very frustrated by his lack of development. But yeah, I would say that other than Thurman, Coleman in 18 was the best nickel corner that he's had. And I think Coleman was good in 2017 as well, if I'm recalling correctly.
Yeah, so his first year with the Lions, he was really good. I was looking the other night. He got targeted. So the numbers on this are kind of crazy, Brendon, where in 2018, he was good, 70 grade by PFF. He's targeted 73 times, about 50 receptions. The next year in Detroit, they had him all over the place. He was targeted 112 times, but he only allowed 71 receptions. But the last couple of years, it's gone a little bit funky. It's been a little functified the last couple of years in his recent stops, which you said how they gave him $3 million?
We don't know yet. We just know it's 1 year. I haven't seen that.
I think it's a vet minimum deal based upon his recent play. That would be my guess. Yeah,
possibly.
But I like the deal nonetheless. It's a slam dunk deal. Like it's like Artie Burns. It's like you've rounded out your depth. You're not paying a lot of money, no future money. It's smart all the way around.
Yeah, and like with Artie Burns, if it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal. It's not like giving Kerry Williams $7 million to do nothing.
True.
It's not like paying Ahkello Witherspoon $4 million to do nothing.
That's right. Hey, we got a 5th rounder back on him though.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know if I'd do that deal again, but there you go.
No,
but yeah. Artie Burns, $2 million means nothing. Coleman, maybe less than that. If he doesn't work out, it's fine. It's kind of like when you brought Byron Maxwell back at the end of 2017, and he was actually kind of serviceable. And again, this is what Pete does. He gets the best out of corners. It's maybe the only thing he does well anymore. So you gotta let that bird fly. You gotta give him the opportunity to do that
and trust him on it. Don't put significant resources in that letting him fly. Give him bodies, give him a lot. Even just don't put a lot into it. Go in other places a little bit harder in direction. Well, tell me about this linebacker. Do you have any info on this guy that we got from Chicago? Because other than him being a Desai guy, I don't have much on him and looking at. I didn't get much of a read on him myself.
Yeah, Joel Buniwe, and that is the correct pronunciation. I actually looked it up.
On that, I'm never going to
pronounce
that right.
Yeah, no, it's not so bad. It rhymes. Buniwe. Yeah.
I got to pronounce it with a little bit of that accent. I can't pronounce it regular. It's like that many vowels. So
yeah. I don't have too much of a read on it. Basically, he's a really good special teams player. He was I think, special teams captain in Chicago for those 4 years. I looked it up. Let me double check this. But yeah, he played over 1,200 special team snaps over the last 4 years.
Okay.
but only 49 defensive snaps, including 0 last year. So I think he's pretty clearly here for that. Hey, that's cool.
Tandem News competition.
Maybe it's the end of BBK.
That's true. That's true. They
Maybe
don't
it's
like
the end of Cody Barton too.
That's also could be true on this. Either one of those. And BBK's got the ACL he's coming off of, so no guarantee
Mhm.
he's going to be in a position they feel good about, especially because he's at a 5'11" guy that runs really as low as he does. I don't know if he works as a 3-4 inside guy with his. You protect him with a 4-3, but a 3-4 gives him a little bit exposed to linemen coming down on him in that scheme. Could be some of that, built in there just a little bit. Well, let's forward this to that was kind of our last guys, right? Did we have any other guys that we'd missed on discussing?
Well, Gerald Everett went to the Chargers, but obviously we knew we were not going to re-sign him when we got Noah Fant in that trade and gave Disley all that money, so that's not really anything.
Chargers offseason has been awesome, by the way. I feel like they've killed that. They've been as impressive to me as any team this offseason in their approach.
Matt Ryan went to the Colts, so we know he's not going to the Seahawks. I don't have too much to say about that other than I'm glad, but only a 3rd-round pick, actually less than I was expecting.
Can we call the Colts I keep trying to give them props the last couple of years in this respect, and they're that team that their process has been smart. They just haven't gotten the results from it, and that being the nature of football a little bit. I felt like they just got kind of hammered when Luck retired on them in the time he did, in the timing where they had finally had the offensive line ready for him. They finally had a roster ready to compete at that point, and now they've been scuttling through the quarterback situation. They flipped 2 third-round picks for Carson Wentz, got Washington to eat the contract, and then bring back Matt Ryan, and then only have to give up 1 third-round pick to do so. I just kind of shows to me, again, another organization that's consistently been smart in their approach, and eventually it'll probably pay off for them. I think they got to get a little more aggressively with their money situation at times and be a little more less of the, like we are, just we'll stay in our lane, But I thought that was a smart move by them, smart move in the box that they're kind of cut in.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Not a whole lot else going on with the Seahawks right now, and that's honestly, like I said, that's fine by me at this point. I don't think there's a whole lot else we need to do. Honestly, if you want to put Forsythe and Curhan out there and let Drew Lock be the tackle dummy that he was always meant to be, that he's destined to be, that's fine by me too. One thing I'm going to throw out there real quick, Billy Turner just signed with the Broncos, meaning that there's now a very good chance that Brandon Shell finds his way back here.
Okay.
If you want to bring it back, that's fine, but please let Curhan compete with him in camp. Like, make it an honest competition. That's what I'm going to say.
Well, and you may have to promise him to get him the job back where you go, he says it's my job. And I don't know if Carroll would agree to that anyway. I don't think maybe he wouldn't ask that. But I at this point, I would like them to do it. Brendon, you just spoke about, you made these signings because of the fact that then you go into the draft, you're not driven to have to pick a player by need. You can pick the best player available, especially as we talk about that number 9 pick. And right now you could easily be driven to that number 9 pick by having to take tackle because you are so thin at both of those tackle spots. So at least bringing in Shell would allow you to get that freedom to be able to let your draft board be freed up to get the best player who's on your board, whoever that may be, when you come up and select. Well, let's pair this forward a little bit then onto the draft, Brendon, and we can kind of get a little bit of a firmer hand, I think, about what's going to happen in front of us in that 9 pick. We've got a lot of options there. When you look at the players, and you've had some time now, you maybe scout some at least the top end kind of guys. I guess the first question out the gate on this is is there 9 top end guys from your rate that if one of these 9 guys fall to us, I can definitely say that. And I guess let's go with our 9 guys maybe a little bit. Let's put them together if you do.
Yeah, so I've been kind of looking at things lately. I've been trying to figure out how many fist pump get it in guys are there at number 9. How many guys are you fist pumping, punching in on the draft board at number 9 if they're there? Are there 9? If there are 9 or more, then you're good. If there are less than 9, then we have a problem. So let's see how many we can build up here. Let's start at quarterback because at this point, QB1 in this draft seems to be Malik Willis. He had a really nice pro day. I'm seeing him generally be the consensus number 1 QB. He may not be the number 1 QB off the board because of need, but he is expected to be the number 1 QB in terms of who is the highest rated prospect. So for me, Malik Willis is a get it in. You're like, I guess. I'm going to say this. I like Malik Willis a lot. They say he probably won't be a starter until year 2, possibly not year 3. That's no for me. I don't like that at all.
No.
So for you, is Malik Willis a fist pump option at number 9? He's not for me.
Sigh and a good like punch to the chair. A sigh and almost maybe a little like a damn it escaping the lips too. Yeah, I to your point on this, and the way I've tried to sum up this argument best, Brendon, is Lamar Jackson came out with much higher pedigree, playing against much stiffer competition, was a much better prospect coming out than Malik Willis. He went at the back end of the first round. We're teams, but there are teams out there and people out there and fan base out there talking themselves into Malik Willis because of the fact that it's such a dearthy period of quarterbacks in this particular draft. Don't get caught up in the hype because of that. If you draft a quarterback, it should be because these guys truly the talented guy to do it. And to your point on that, if you have to wait 2 or 3 years on these rookie quarterbacks, the point of the blueprint is to get the guy who's ready to play as a young quarterback right now behind a team that's stacked up from him. You're not sticking to the blueprint if you're doing that, if you're waiting 3 years and then he plays that one good year and he Paul Richardson's you, where he's been out for the first couple of years, get you the one good year, and now he's earned the payday, and you get none of the benefit of that quarterback on that cheap rookie deal at that point.
Yeah, you're not going to Trey Lance me, man. You're not going to do it.
Don't Trey Lance me, man. Don't Trey Lance me. Give me that noise. I'm trying to hear that.
Yeah. Honestly, like Malik Willis might even be a fold for me. I might not be willing to take him at number 9. I might just fold the hand. I might say, let's get somebody else. I don't know. I like him. I will say this. I do like him. I just don't like the idea of having a QB not be viable until year 3. Because then what? Is he going to immediately want a big payday?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just, it doesn't add up for me on it. I hope somebody else picks him ahead of us, which is what some people are saying. Detroit's going to be the team, but
Detroit, Carolina, the Giants, even the Falcons, they just traded Ryan. You never know.
They could. I mean, it could make some sense. I mean, I think he's going to get taken ahead of us. That's my read on this right now. Is somebody's going to vault up and get him. I don't think he lasts to us at number 9. But
I've only seen one other QB get taken in the first round in serious mock drafts. And I think this is going to be pretty quick to eliminate here, but it's Kenny Pickett. I've seen him going to the Saints in the first round. Would you, I think I already know the answer here. Would you even consider taking him at number 9 overall? Yeah.
No. Dear God, no. That would be freak out. That'd be a drunk stream. I'd be doing all the drugs after that. If we pick Kenny Pickett at number 9. I don't know if I might. I have to shut the channel down if Pickett's at 9.
I looked at some stuff about him. I liked a lot of it, but he's got those small hands, and I hate that. I can't abide by that.
I can't abide by baby hands. I just can't. I need big hand energy in the room if I need a leader. Nobody's going behind a leader with baby hands like that, wearing gloves all the time.
Yeah. I didn't live through Dave Craig, but my parents did, and they both hated him because of that. So I don't need to live through that.
It's the same thing that happens with Matt Corral and the tape you watch with him. Like I've been saying, reference at him. It's like you every time somebody goes and hits Matt Corral up in the open field and he takes even a side glancing blow, it's like somebody puts Simtex on his uniform. It's like an explosion occurs and the ball just goes flying out of his hand because he's hit so hard like it's a car crash. And that's just what happened with Dave Craig. He had the little tiny hands, couldn't hold on to the ball in the Dome Stadium, Brendon. Dome Stadium wasn't even wet. And Dave couldn't hold on to the ball a good amount of the time. Like it was dry ball, dry hand, still every time. Yeah, that was awful. And let's not replicate that again because he can't do anything about it. He's trying. You heard about this, right? His fingers grew a quarter of an inch from the combine to pro day. What did he do? Did he go to one of those surgeons and like the leg lengthening surgeons, you think?
I don't know. It kind of gives me big Aiden Hutchinson bench press vibes. If you remember that at his pro day, his spotter was helping him. Suddenly he's able to do more bench presses. Like, I don't know. I don't buy it. It sounds like a bunch of BS to me.
Yeah, I don't either. But I'm picturing him like at night, just like doing some painful, trying to pull his, fingers long or something. Like just it'll get there. 9 inches in your top 5 pick.
I don't know. It's making me think of that really stupid Kevin Smith movie Tusk, where you had the.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why you just made me think of that.
Yeah, they focus in on his finger, and he's had them been like amputated. He's got like some other man's fingers on his hand or something. He's gone that far with it. The difference is between you being a second round pick and a first round pick. I got to do something. you know, he's
Yeah.
measuring guys' hands in the bar. This works.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't see any running backs that are even going to get taken in the first round in this draft. Kenneth Walker III has a chance to be like, 31st, 30th.
Brees Hall
But
might
I'm
too.
Brees Hall has a chance, but I'm not seeing anybody you can even consider in the top 10. So we're going to skip that.
Hold on,
A
real quick.
wide re-
Real quick,
Go
let me
ahead.
get just we got a couple
Okay, go
donos
ahead.
here. Amy Kimball, thank you for the $10 donation. Amy, I appreciate you. It says, do you think Tanner Muse can be used in a linebacker rotation? And I believe Justin Coleman will be a good fit since he can do both man and zone. Both of you are awesome. Well, thank you. You're awesome, Amy. I appreciate the donation. What do you think with Tanner Muse? Bigger linebacker. Can kind of maybe moved around a little bit on the rotation.
I would love to have found out last year, but
Yeah,
for some reason we had to play Bobby Wagner every single snap. But I
yeah.
like Tanner Muse. I like those kinds of reclamation projects where a talented guy, just stuff that has very little to do with the player, just kind of gets in his way and he doesn't ever get a chance there, and then you pick him up. Like, I love stuff like that. So I would love to see Tanner Muse get a chance in a linebacker rotation. And yeah, Coleman can play man and zone, and I do think he will be a good fit. He's been a good fit for this defense before. I know the defense is changing,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think Coleman's going to be all right.
I think Amy, we're going to get a lot of nickel looks to that 2018 season. Justin Coleman played 67% of the snaps. So he was like a de facto starter in that 2018 year that he really balled out in. But like Brendon said, I don't have a lot to go off of with Tanner Muse because we didn't get to see him on the football field. I think he was like a late addition even into preseason where I don't think he was even in
Mm-hmm.
preseason games. So we just didn't have
Mm-hmm.
a lot to look at with him. I think he's going to get his chance to compete. And the linebacker depth right now is not, even this guy they've added, as Brendon said, he's a special teams guy. So if we're talking about a guy that could be in a rotation and actually playing on the defense, he doesn't have a lot ahead of him to crack into that lineup and make some noise if he's ready to tap into that physical potential.
Mm-hmm.
We got one more. We got a couple more here. Don't know. Sorry. Randall McDaniel. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, did you hear the DK interview by Garnett? I got to listen to this. I've heard it. I haven't heard it yet, Brandon, but I've heard something about this. So he says it's interesting how he talked about B-Wags, but didn't say much about Russ. Did you have a chance to see this interview?
I did not. I heard a little bit about it. I didn't know
Okay.
about that specifically, but I don't think it's shocking that those guys. I don't think they didn't get along, but maybe they didn't get along, if you know what I mean.
Well, let's say like maybe I think we both agree on this, right? DK and Russ probably liked each other well enough as being on good terms, but when it comes to them as this football dream matchup that some people would like to have told you it wasn't maybe exactly that. It wasn't exactly maybe the match made in heaven that some people. Well, his deep ball with DK's speed, yeah, those went together. But I don't know if they were necessarily that Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers like meshing of continuity and years of working together on a practice field. What do you think?
Yeah, they definitely didn't get there, not even close. Geno Smith was throwing better trust balls to
There we
DK
go.
than Russ was, so
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
I think so, Randall. There's something to that, I think, and that I do wonder there with DK and Russell at the end where they were at as far as their not saying they hated each other, just as far as the chemistry on the football field. Sometimes it's just not a good chemistry matchup, right? Sometimes you bring in
Hmm.
the new front man for the band after the lead singer's OD'd, and like he just doesn't have it. He just doesn't have that
Right.
swag. Amy Kimball will get with a $20 donation. Thank you, Amy. Goodness, coming in hot. Says, is it possible for both of you to do a mock draft together live? Subscribe to you both. Thanks. Well, thank you for the $20 donation, Amy. Can we do we're going to do a mock draft here live at some point?
We're probably going to have to do that at least once, I would say.
I would say so.
There are a lot of different mock draft simulators. We might have to do a little bit of a mock draft party or something.
I think we'll have to do a lot. We'll do it as a mock draft stream, and it'll be just doing
Hmm.
us end-to-end mock drafts, trading back. We're not trading up. God, do not trade up, Schneider. Not this year. Don't you do it. But yeah, we'll definitely do that. That's absolutely for us in the cards. We've been kind of unfurling this offseason a little bit, but yeah, definitely we will do, Amy, a mock draft. We'll play around with a couple of different scenarios to try to give us that kind of feeling of what we could be looking at as different options. Because that's kind of the point, to narrow down those options in these mock
Right.
drafts. But thank you for the donation, Amy. You're awesome for both donations there. And Randall, you as well. Sorry though, keep going there, Brendon. On
Right.
we got to running back and quarterback.
Yeah. So wide receiver, there are some guys who seem like they could go in that top 10 range, but with the Seahawks in the situation that they're in, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to seriously consider taking them. I've heard a lot about Garrett Wilson. Some people think he's a top 10 pick. Jameson Williams and Drake London are getting buzz like that. I can't imagine this team in their current state needing a wide receiver. That might be the one position where you can say things are covered well enough to where you don't need to do BPA if BPA is receiver. Do you have anybody that in terms of value you feel like is good at number 9 overall at least?
Well, if we're talking about pump the fist approach, right? Yeah, that guy's going to do it. The guy who's was surprisingly interesting to me, and I don't think it's the right pick, and there's better selections and there's better players, but just receiver standpoint, I like the guys you mentioned all there. The Drake London one would be interesting because of how good he is at getting off of the line of scrimmage and his ability to make contested catches. And that does fit well within an offense, especially if you potentially do move Tyler Lockett in a deal, for instance. He's also a bigger wide receiver, willing to block. He can get open quick despite being that big size. There's been comparisons drawn to him of like a Michael Thomas type. And I do think there may be a little bit of a fit. I would be maybe a little bit interested in that. He's just got a little bit of that kind of skill set that might interest John and Pete in putting that. You have two twin towers then potentially with him and DK. But I agree with you. It's not likely to happen. You're not likely to see them go. It's very, very small chances of wide receiver. It would probably have to take a Tyler Lockett trade for that to be even
or the Metcalf trade, of course. But yeah,
or Metcalf. Don't even say it. Why do you speak that evil? Why are you speaking that evil, Brendon? No.
I agree, but it's got to at least be on the table. I have to believe it is.
When there's enough of this fan base surprising me as much as they are, and I'm not throwing shade at them, but that they're willing and like this is an option. This has got that tells me there is something to this a bit in its logic and reasonable approach to thinking this is maybe a way that they do go with this, especially with John Schneider's current comments today. I go and I look at it, Brendon, and I go, man, you don't find guys like this coming down the track, but every once in a while. And I think that it's hard to find them exactly built like this and just utilize it, take advantage of it. But again, I understand the people that are on the other side of the fence with this completely. I mean, it's a good debate,
Okay. So I don't see any tight ends going even in the first round this year. Doesn't look like we might not see one go in the second round. It is a very thin tight end draft. Wow.
They shouldn't. Dulich is the only guy in the second round who you maybe could make an argument for, but I like the McBride guy.
Yeah.
No.
You're not seeing it?
He's so slow, Brent. These guys, the tight ends the last 3 years, all of them are just plodding like lumbering mummies. They can't move. They got size, but they don't have any like juice in their legs, like nothing, man. It's just this Jimmy Graham after the ligament surgery. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So let's have a little fun now because this is one of the fun positions in this draft. We're going to offensive tackle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So we got 3 guys here, maybe 4, but let's start at the top.
Here we go.
This first guy, I don't see any way he's there at number 9, but we got to talk about him for at least a second here. Ikem Ekwonu from North Carolina State. Left tackle, great size, 6'4", 110 pounds, like prototypical left tackle size. Excellent run blocker, dominant run blocker. Has a couple of technique things he needs to work out as a pass blocker, I think. But the dude is awesome. If he was somehow there at number 9, are you taking 1 second to draft him or 2 seconds to draft him?
1 second. He's everything you said was absolutely true about him. He's also the guy that's the Leatherwood of this draft from last year. Remember Leatherwood, where he has the most wow blocks on tape of any offensive lineman in this draft. The blocks where he's taking a guy and he's not just putting him in the dirt, but he's planting him into the dirt where there's just the top of his helmet left when he's done with him. He's that kind of guy, violent, mean, nasty. More than these other tackles in this top end. That's his signature tone that he brings. So you want to run block, you want nasty. There is questions about whether or not he's going to be able to make it a tackle, but if you end up having to kick him inside the left guard, he'll be an outstanding left guard if that's his floor. But yes, that's a fist pump.
All right, we got a fist pump. We finally got ourselves a fist pump. Let's go.
Brandon's excited.
And yep. And now we got to talk about the other likely top 10 left tackle in this draft. It is Charles Cross of Mississippi State. Very similar to Iquan Wu in terms of his frame. More of a pass protector. Very, very good pass protector. Needs a little bit of work as a run blocker, but he is a true blue chipper. Sounds like he's not going to get to our pick either, because apparently the Giants are fishing around, the Jets are fishing around. But if he did, are you fist pumping getting it in with Charles Cross?
Big fist pump. Athletic as hell. The most athletic of these top three guys on the board. It's rare when you're 300 pounds, Brendon, they say, man, he needs to gain some weight. But that's why he does a little bit in the run game, as they say. He needs a little bit more added weight to his game there, a little added strength. But as far as his tape go, he's my favorite of these top three tackles. I like his tape just the best, as far as, to me, it's the cleanest tape of the bunch. I like all three of these guys, but I absolutely would be most fist pumping over Charles Cross being the selection.
I'm right there with you. I really like this Charles Cross guy. My only hang up, and this is not a personal hang up, he's more of a pass blocker than a run blocker. We know how Pete might feel about that.
Well,
we know how he is.
You've got 10 years of every offensive line prospect, Pete or Tom Cable or Tom Solari or Bill O'Brien, whoever, has looked at as an offensive line prospect for the Seahawks last 10 years. The first and foremost skill set they look for is run blocking, and then pass blocking always comes second, to your point.
All right, and the third and final tackle prospect who I would say is overwhelmingly likely to go number 10 in the top 10 is Evan Neal of Alabama. Big guy, 6'7.5", 340 pounds. Might be more of a right tackle in the NFL, maybe even more of a guard. So that kind of gives me pause. But let's talk about Evan Neal for a second.
I do think that his washout spot is right tackle. I'm not sure if he can do left tackle. Of course, we've had guys in the past come out of Alabama like a James Carpenter who played left tackle that then need to be kicked inside. I do wonder, Brendon, 6'7", getting kicked inside at 6'7". Fluker was able to pull it off, but it's a rare big cat that can get that low in the leverage game. You've got to have just phenomenal strength at that point, because you're getting out leveraged every time by the Donalds of the world. I do think he'll handle it right tackle. He's a meat and potatoes kind of top 10 first round pick, where there's not a lot of excitement to the game there, but the floor is so high and it's so clean from that aspect that, to me, I know I'm getting at least above average right tackle play bringing this guy on. Slash, he might be able to hold up over there on the left side.
Yeah, this is probably the wrong way to look at things, but I can't help it. This is just how I view it. If you draft a left tackle in the top 10, then I feel like I need him to, after a couple years, be a top 5 left tackle, and I'm good. But if you're taking a right tackle in the top 10, I kind of need him to be the best. If you're taking a guard in the top 10, I need him to be number 1, not top 5, not top 3. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at things, but I just feel like the value of the left tackle compared to right tackle and guard is just so different that I feel like I need Evan Neal to be the best in the game at his position if you take him in the top 10.
I do tend to agree with you. The new mode of thinking on this, of course, is that the left tackle, right tackle is becoming more and more increasingly equivalent, being that you can't just, count on it being that less effective pass rusher over on the left-hand side rushing against your right tackle. So therefore your right tackle doesn't have to be as good. But with that said, the more I watch it through the years, there's a couple teams that still lean to that right side, but more often than not, most teams still treat that right tackle position as kind of the not as important position on the offensive line as some other spots. And so that still leads to me that the NFL hasn't caught up to that supposed, this is where the game's going, thinking of things. And I see just more power rushers still coming from that right side rather than the same twitchy edge guys you get on the blind side. So to me, I agree with you. I think I would need more of that impact guy. This is why Evan Neal of the three gets me the least excited. Ekwonu, I know I can kick into guard, and he's going to be nasty in there. This guy at 6'7", I kick into guard. I think he'll hold up there, but the track record of 6'7" guards is not good in the NFL. So
no fist pump.
No, I'd fist pump because I think he's going to hold up. I don't think you go into right guard. He goes to right tackle, but to your point, he's not going to be the best right tackle in the game. So it's a fist pump because look, Brendon, we've got to deal with the offensive line. So if it's you're getting the top 3 tackles in this draft, and he's not going to be, it's that weird point. I'm between side, but fist pump because I know he's going to be good. I know there's not a bust factor here. He's going to be the best right tackle you've had here in Seattle in maybe your history, but yet he's not to that level you're talking about.
Can he be a top 3 right tackle, top 5? I mean, what are we looking at here?
Top 5. He could be a
Yeah,
top 5,
okay.
top 3, maybe
I mean,
he sneaks into top 5 is probably that's probably where he's going to be.
yeah, okay. All right. One more guy we're going to talk about here real quick, and I'm kind of dreading this one because I can kind of see it happening.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
But
I know you're going to say.
no shade at this guy. I like him. I'm not saying anything negative about him, but there is a scenario I think where Pete Carroll maybe even crosses there, but he's like, I got to have that run blocker.
Yeah.
I got to have the bigger guy. I got to have the guy who can maul people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know where you're
Trevor
going.
Penning. Yeah,
I
Trevor
knew you were going to
Penning.
say it. Yep. Yeah, Trevor Penning. Jesus. Okay, let's unpack Trevor for a second here. Senior Bowl, he goes out there, and these guys are all having a mentality of protect yourself, protect the guy across from you. You guys are trying to get drafted. You're not trying to do things to get yourselves injured in order so that you don't get drafted and don't get paid. This whole 17, 18, 19, 22-year approach to get to where you're getting to here. We need you to kind of protect each other. He took that week and wasn't doing a lot of protecting. He was driving guys' heads into the ground, finishing, being nasty. But this isn't games. And look, he was still voted the best lineman by the Senior Bowl practices throughout the week. So obviously the guy still balled out. His combine numbers have been good, which I was worried about with being a smaller school guy. Oh, he'll be this nasty guy with no athleticism or no ability to do anything athletically, but that's not the case. He was one of the better testers at the combine. I just wasn't all that impressed by the tape. You got lesser competition playing these lesser teams, and so there's some dominance. There's some times where he's just kind of just doing his job, and I expect dominance when you're not running through some of the top level competition on that. So would I fist pump on that? No, that's an overdraft to me. I've got Penning at like a back end first round to even a second round type grade on him, to be frank.
Yeah, I agree. I just kind of have a bad feeling that it could happen. I think
You're right.
things could break that way.
100%. That's a Pete Carroll pick, man. Nasty. The first thing you hear, oh, he's mean. He's nasty. This is the kind of guy you'd want a dark alley when you're leaving the bar at 1 a.m. and you're approached by Pete. This is the guy you want. Well, how does he play football, Pete? But that's exactly that type of guy. You're right on the button with that one.
All right, so that's it for tackle. I don't think there's anyone else who's in the conversation at number 9 overall.
Only the outside guy, and he wouldn't fist pump me, but he would be interesting, is Bernard Raymond, because there's so much heat behind him as far as what you're hearing with his off the field workouts and how he's improving and taking to coaching and the stuff that's being heard along with in the background. How he's one of those guys who hasn't played a lot of football. I'm not saying I'd be fist bumping him, but he may be a guy they do look there.
Yeah, I was doing some big board evaluation stuff. I didn't see a single big board that had him even in the first round. So
I wouldn't like it there. I wouldn't, but it's the physical profile that they've in the past taken guys with the physical profile look. And if they're projecting him to be better, it's an outside chance, but I don't think they do it. But again, this team does crazy things. Remember the Bruce Irvin pick, which Bruce Irvin wasn't at the pick we picked him, wasn't slotted to be in the first round either. So they've gone this trek before and outside the box.
Right. All right. So let's move to the interior offensive line.
Okay.
There are 2 guys here. I'm going to skip one because I don't think it makes sense for us. I'm going to skip Kenyon Green. I've heard he may be a high to mid first round pick, but I don't see a whole lot of logic there. I'm just not feeling it.
No, neither of the two, him or Zion Johnson, neither of the two make any sense for where we're picking.
Right.
No.
However, let's spend a minute on this one, and this one's really tough for me. I might be more torn on this guy than anyone else that I've looked at so far.
Okay.
Tyler Linderbaum. He is a guy that Shane Waldron may have molded out of clay to play center in his offense.
Yes, he
did. He's like 290 pounds, but he doesn't play nearly as weak as you would expect. And he is phenomenal in space. He is the dream center prospect. But you usually don't see centers go in the top 10. Very rare in my experience. In fact, sitting here thinking about it, I can't think of the last time a center went in the top 10 of any draft.
I don't think so in my lifetime. I can remember anybody taking that high. No.
Nevertheless, he is considered to be a top 15 prospect by most places. So you're probably looking at like a mid first round pick. But if the Seahawks have the opportunity to maybe reach a little bit to get Linderbaum at number 9 overall, how do you feel about that? Fist pump or no?
I'll fist pump. Because I'm not happy about. To me, you trade back 5-6 selections, pick up a second or third round pick, and you still are able to get him. I don't buy that he's going top 15. I think Ryan Kelly to the Colts a few years ago is about as high as you've seen a center go in recent history. So I think that you could still pull back, and there's going to be teams maybe willing to trade up at that point to target somebody. Be it maybe there's a team that loves Cody Pickett or loves a certain Jordan Davis type guy that they're just in love with. So I think you trade up, but at the end of the day, Brendon, I've been begging for this team to invest in the offensive line, regardless of whether Russell Wilson is here or not, even if it's for the future quarterback, because I'm a big believer in building from the offensive line as one of those building blocks of your team. One of the places you begin with, not end with, not secondhand, not put secondhand parts onto. So if they're starting to put frontline parts, then I'll get behind it. Is it overdraft a little bit? Sure. But is he going to help that center position? To your point, is he a beautiful fit for the scheme? Is he as absolutely drawn up in a lab as you could ask for? You better believe it. So yeah, I applaud it and I'll fist pump it.
All right, so that's 4 guys on offense. So we're almost halfway there.
Are you fist pumping Linderbaum?
I think I am. I'm not sure. That is
you're
kind
here,
of a.
But you're not here. You're here, but
yeah.
not
I think I would do it, but there are some guys I would rather have.
Yes.
And let's keep going and let's try to uncover more of these guys. But Linderbaum, I mean, he looks like he's going to be a all-pro center for the foreseeable future, but is it worth it for a center when you could get that dominant edge rusher? I don't know. That's tough.
To me, if you're beginning a process where you're recognizing you've gone too light at center in the past, and now we need to put the true talent to the board to that side, which we haven't seen any proof of this yet, but that's the intention, and this is the beginning of that. Yay. That would be a beautiful thing for this team and its building. I don't know if they take that approach, but that's what would make me almost sign off on it in itself. Is I would take that as a sign that they understand now they got to stop going light, truly put good, valuable guys in that spot, and that'd work.
Okay, so 4 guys. Let's jump on over to the defense. Let's start on the defensive line here. Now we're running a 3-4. I don't think you typically see 3-4 defensive linemen go in the top 10.
No.
There are only 2 guys that I could even conceive of doing that for in this draft. One would be George Karlaftis, because I believe he projects, if he was in a 3-4, to actually playing on the line. We were actually talking about this in chat last night. We were talking about him. One guy said he really wanted to take him, and he said, no, you wouldn't play him an outside linebacker. You would actually play him at defensive end in a 3-4. And I was like, God, do I really want to spend that top pick on a defensive end in a 3-4? And they were saying that's what it would take. So that's a no for me. But what about you?
I could maybe be talked into it. I've got to consider a little bit more. The key distinction here is the 3-4 Seattle is going to be running is going to be what's not the 2 gapping, which is you tend to have 3-4 those 3-4 linemen have the 2 gaps. They're responsible for 2 ways in controlling both, especially specifically in the run game. What Seattle's doing now is the gap and a half in the Vic Fangio defense, where it's not fully committing to one. You always have sort of a fallback to go back to that backside gap, whatever it may be that's chosen by the play design, but you're really almost driving like it's a single gap system a little bit, which is what makes it a little bit unique. Therefore, Karlaftis might be doing a little bit more penetrating and a little bit more attacking than he typically would be doing in a 3-4. I still do share your hesitancy here, though, in looking at it, because to me, watching his tape, he's just so damn dynamic coming off as a down lineman in a 4-3, and he's so strong. The best power rusher in this draft. He just puts linemen on skates every single time, and I don't know. I'd want to lean him into his strength more than try to do some of that stuff we've done in the past, which would be fitting him into the scheme we're trying to run. I feel like if you're drafting him to do it that way.
Okay, so no fist pump there, and I agree. I'm not fist pumping on Karlaftis.
I'd fist pump, but I'd fist pump because I don't buy that they'd be running him just specific. We're still running some 4-3 elements on this team, and I still think that he would be doing a lot of rushing with his hand in the dirt as that power side. He's a good power side, non-Leo, 4-tech, 5-tech guy, or the 4-eye is what they would, whatever you want to call. He'd be okay in that spot if they're going to move it over there and put him in that position. So he's another one of those guys, Brendon, he's like Evan Neal, right? Where it's like there's not a lot of sizzle, but the floor's high and it's safe and you're secure and it's going to keep you warm and you got a roof over your head. You know what I mean? You just don't have a lot of extra amenities with it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Karlaftis, And the other defensive lineman you could consider at number 9 would probably be Jordan Davis, because he set the combine on fire and has
Yeah.
elevated himself to being probably a top 20 pick.
Mhm.
And a few people have played with the idea of making him our nose tackle of the future at number 9. I'm not into it, but I don't know. I'd say that you need to convince me, but I can already tell from the look on your face you're not going to be doing that.
Look, I love upside, Brendon. I draft for upside. That's where I like to lean. This is how I build my draft boards. Is I want to see what a guy's going to be. Give me the best potential here. Don't give me high floors all the time. I'll fall the floors at times, but I like ceilings. And look, the guy's one of those huge ceiling guys, but I haven't seen enough of it on tape to know that I can tap into it at the next level. A rotational guy, a guy that's got shades of being maybe just a run stuffer at the next level. There's a baseline of this in recent history where you have the Carolina Panthers drafting Derek Brown a couple of years ago in the top 10, similar kind of body style guy, not quite as big, but maybe a little bit of a more refined pass rusher at that time, more of an every down player for Auburn. And he's been okay. He's been okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're not three techs. They're not those guys that are attacking in the backfield with TFLs and sacks and quarterback hits. They're the guys that are going to collapse pockets slowly. And is the value of that top 10? No, that would be a gross. I mean, he should go in the first round, but it's first round. It ain't. He's in that tier 1 group to me. No.
All right. I pretty much agree with that. I would consider taking him if you traded down to like the Eagles pick at 16
Sure.
or something. That's about
Yeah,
it.
I'm okay there. But then you're doing it from the standpoint, Brendan. Like, we trade back, which I'd love to do. You're into that meat of this draft, which is that tier 2 group of this draft. So you got that extra pick, and you got this guy. Beautiful, awesome job at that point. I would applaud that. That's a rebuilding type move. That's the strong rebuilding type move. We need more than just one top end player here.
All right. So now we're going to have fun again because we're at another one of the really
Ooh,
juicy positions of this draft.
here we
We
go.
are talking edge defenders, specifically
Ooh,
3-4 outside linebackers, and there are a
yeah.
lot of them.
Oh yeah.
A lot of them.
Oh yeah.
So many that I almost hesitate to use our number 9 pick on one because I think there are going to be some really good guys at number 40. But let's talk about it. So first guy, Aiden Hutchinson. There's no way, unless he gets filmed hotboxing in his car or something, there's no way he's there
While
at
he's
9,
punching a
right?
cop, hotboxing while he's punching a cop. Yeah, I run to the podium on that one. That's
Yeah.
the no brainer of no brainers on that one. So yeah, he's awesome. This tape is absolutely, he's legit.
Yeah, but he's not going to be there. So
No,
let's
no chance.
but these next 3 guys could be there.
All right.
We've got Thibodeau, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already talked about him a little bit of a space case, a little bit of a odd combine,
Yeah.
but there is no denying the talent. So there is some bust potential with Thibodeau for sure, but the ceiling is very high. I think that if he realizes his considerable potential, he could be a all-pro type outside linebacker pass rusher. So if Thibodeau is there at number 9, are you running to the podium? Are you resigned to maybe needing to take him, or are you trying to figure out something else? Because God, no.
No, I'm running the podium. One of those
Mm-hmm.
prospects that took me a little bit of time to get my evaluation fully on him because I had those concerns like people did about the motor and does he love football and does he have his eyes for other things? I think part of what I would run to the podium is actually Carroll's presence here. Carroll is the exact type of coach for a guy like Thibodeau who will embrace his personality, embrace the way he goes about his business, which is not the normal type of bird, and let him be him. And on the other side of that, Thibodeau, I think, is going to be a guy who will play really hard for Carroll. He fought through an injury through this last year. Thibodeau did. He got injured really early on in the year. Those lower leg injuries, especially when you just decide to play through them rather than let yourself rest, are going to linger and never fully heal throughout the course of a season.
Yeah.
I think that was the case with Thibodeau. So his last year there with the production being down a little bit, I don't ding him as much for that. You don't find guys in this draft with his combination of get off and bend. You'll find guys that have maybe the same get off. You might find some other guys that have his bend. You will not find in the second round a guy with this combination of get off and bend. I pump my fist.
All right, me too. Me too. I am on the Thibodeau bandwagon. He might be my favorite realistic option at number 9 after Charles Cross.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he's going to absolutely fall to that spot because of those concerns. But I think Carroll would love to jump on him as a Leo. I mean, he'd look at him just all day long from that blindside edge.
All right. Next up is Jermaine Johnson of the Florida State Seminoles. Another guy who projects very well to play an outside linebacker in a 3-4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's quite the freak athlete of Thibodeau,
Mm-mm.
but he is very likely to be a at least top 15, probably top 12 pick. So if he's there at number 9, are you on board?
I've come around to fist pumping on him. The first few games I watched with him, there was a lot of worry on my part as far as him stopping the run. Whereas if you have a guy who can't play the run and a top 10 pick, that's I'm going to wait on that one. I'm not picking the top 10 if that's the case. So I was a little worried about it. Got better on some of the other tape I watched with him, and he's got enough freakish skills to his game as a pass rusher. Very, very violent hands, buddy. And though to your point, he's not there with Thibodeau on the athleticism or get off. He's fairly close and maybe more refined than Thibodeau is as a pass rusher in that respect, just in his hand usage and how he does. Thibodeau's more of I'm gonna win with my lower legs. I'm gonna stutter step you and then bend outside off the stutter step. This guy will just wreck you with his hands a little bit. Swim moves, dips, all that. But I like him. He's very explosive, got a lot to his game, and I think he's just starting to kind of scratch into what he's going to be as well. He's like Thibodeau, where you see the ceiling there with him.
Mm-hmm. All right, so
Where do you stand on him?
I am fist pumping on that one as well. I like this edge crop a lot. I am high on most of these guys. I'm high on the guys all the way down to the second and even third rounds. Honestly, I really like this crop. This is a great draft to switch to a hybrid defense on. By the way, a lot of good outside linebackers.
A lot. And that it like you would be, if you're talking about trying to bring him as a defensive end, you go, man, 6'2.5" as a D end here. I don't think that's going to work. But you go, well, 6'2.5" as an outside linebacker, 245, 250. That works. So yeah, you're right. To your point, there's a lot of these guys in this draft.
All right. So another edge player, Travon Walker of Georgia, little bit heavier than these other guys. He weighs in at about 270.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about the fit in a 3-4, but everything I've read and seen indicates that he can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But would he be able to do it so well that you would be willing to spend that number 9 overall pick on him?
I sigh on this one because I think if you're taking the pick at number 9 with Travon Walker, it's because you passed on one of these guys that we're fist pumping on. And I think that I like his game. I don't hate him, but I don't. A lot of these the Georgia tape is amazing to watch, Brendon. You watch, and you have to watch a lot of it because there's so many prospects and you end up just seeing a lot of this stuff over and over. They flew around, they attacked, they suffocated. Like, it's as good a defense in the college football game as I've watched in a lot of years. And that includes all those Alabama defenses that were phenomenal. He was in on that crew, but you do wonder within that, it's like the strength of numbers. It comes to the component of there isn't the game record here doing this. This is all of you guys sort of coming together as a true squad, as you'd like a football team to do to wreck this shop like you are. Good tape, twitchy. He has some bend to him as well. He's got some elements to his game, as you said, a little bit bigger, so he can handle a little bit of the point of the attack stuff and setting the edge. I don't think you're having him stand up. I'll tell you that. So, and I definitely don't want him as a 3-4 defensive end, or as a down lineman in that. But again, with the hybridized stuff, they could. I can't get to. I'm a sigh on that one. I don't hate it. I'm just sighing.
Okay. All right. I think that's pretty reasonable. Ojabo is not really in consideration anymore after he tore his Achilles. I actually think there's an outside chance he's there at our second round pick now. So we'll talk about him later because I am intrigued by that very much. But I don't think you can take him at number 9 after he tears his Achilles.
No, and I'm going to say this with it. Wasn't Sidney Jones Achilles on his pro day?
I think so.
I have a different outlook in because we have these kind of picks. Sidney Jones, Jeffrey, not Richardson, the Tennessee Titans defensive tackle. Simmons. Jeffrey, I always call him Richardson. Jeffrey Simmons came out a couple of years ago, similar situation. He tore his ACL. Sidney had the Achilles. And I think one of the reasons that Sidney has taken so many years to get back to where he's got now, where he seems like maybe I think it takes those couple of years on those Achilles to get back if you're a young guy coming back like that. And I think that it's different from an ACL. And so when you talk about taking him in the second round, like I know I got to wait a little longer on those Achilles guys. I think he might drop because of that, because I just see it as a different injury from the ACL necessarily in how I view it.
Yeah, well, we got a couple years to kill. We got Drew Lock as a quarterback. So
nothing but time, Brendon.
All right. Okay, so inside linebackers, there's really only one guy who I've heard any top 10 buzz around, and a couple people in my Discord actually really like this guy because they think he can play inside and outside. It's Devin Lloyd of Utah. I'm really not gassed on using a high pick on an inside linebacker. I'm really not. But let's talk about Devin Lloyd for a second, because there is some interesting versatility possibility here.
A clean prospect, nothing about his game that you could really pick apart from the linebacker spot, including he's got pretty good size to him. Kind of some comparisons I think I've seen to him of the cat with the Colts. They're a really good linebacker. Use better names with this time.
Darius
Darius
Leonard.
Leonard. Yeah, he's got kind of just Darius Leonard, not quite as long as Leonard is, but some of the similar kind of instincts and just eye-popping speed off of the tape, what you'll see with him. I like him, but I wouldn't fist bump, because again, that's there's better value, better positions that are going to have higher impact in selecting him than going that route. So I think it would be bad. Nakobe Dean is a possibility, but I would hope they wouldn't do that. I hope he goes late first round, but he is a slight guy they could be looking at later on.
Right. I pretty much agree. I'm just the idea of using another high pick on a middle linebacker after spending that first rounder on Brooks. It's just I don't like it.
It's brutal. We got a dono here. Let me get this real. Sorry, Randall took a second on this one, but thank you for the $2 donation. Says DK was shocked Russell Wilson was traded, devastated Bobby Wagner was let go. Shocked and devastated. Okay, so he was shocked about Russell, but devastated by Bobby Wagner. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like to do the whole Reddit thing where you like try to use your forensic scientist on someone's exact words to figure out what they're feeling. Like, I try to be careful with that stuff sometimes. Sometimes it's just he felt like using that word in that moment, and he felt like using the other word at that moment. It doesn't mean anything, but I could kind of see that.
At the very least, it does look like there's indications from DK that he wants to be here. That some people thought, oh, well, now Russell Wilson's gone, DK is going to want to go. This means now he's going to want out. This means he won't sign here. I think that we can, we don't know if Seattle will come up to his asking price, but I think at least from an impetus of wanting to play here standpoint, we could probably say pretty resoundingly that the Russell Wilson thing didn't impact him necessarily. It'll impact if there's not a good quarterback to have throw to him, but it doesn't impact him just Russell leaving in itself. Would you agree on that?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So
absolutely. All right. Okay, we got corners now, and it's a nice crop of corners.
Very nice crop of corners.
And I'm going to say this right now. It took a little bit of work for me to get here, because the idea of using a top 10 pick on a corner, it makes me uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's because we have Carroll. Maybe it's because the two biggest examples of cornerbacks in the top 10 that I can think of recently are Jeffrey Okudah and Mo Claiborne, who are both colossal busts. It doesn't make me feel good. Yeah. But there are three guys in this draft who may go top 10. Okay, first guy, we got Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU, man corner, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Clint Hurt keeps saying, hey, we're going to run more man this year. We're going to do more man stuff this year. Da-da-da-da-da. So if you want to do that, Derek Stingley Jr. is the kind of cornerback that you want to get. But if you are going to run that Pete Carroll zone, which re-signing Sidney Jones kind of tells me you're going to do it at least some, are you going to get the maximum out of him? So fist pump on Stingley Jr., yay or nay?
This is the one guy that I'm going to have to wait a little bit of time, Brendon, to make a determination on where I sit with him. I'm having a hard time with him because I can't figure out what happened the last 2 years. His best film is his freshman season, and it's outstanding film. It's as good a freshman cornerback film. It's the equivalent of Jamar Chase in his freshman film that he was put. It's like that. And you go, okay, that's amazing. But the last 2 years has been really rough. And it's not been bad. It's just been, it's a lot of rough tape. Kyer Elam is another guy like this last year, put out kind of his worst tape as you were hoping he was going to start to ascend. So what the hell's happened, Brendon? I mean, he's not injury that he's fighting through. And I don't have an answer for that. And that doesn't make me able to make it give you an intelligent answer to say, I know he's going to go back to that freshman year ability. I don't know that. And I got to figure out first, in looking at the tape, is it that he just got sloppy at this technique? Was he maybe just dragging a leg along and there's some weird injury that they just didn't report upon and he just was trying to play through it? I haven't seen something like it, Brendon. I really haven't seen like a prospect like this that bursts on the scene like this and falls, especially a corner position where it's just, it's not dependent on a quarterback throwing you the ball or something like that. It's literally just, he just kind of started going bad. Where are you with him?
The fact that he's gotten worse does actually put me off it a little bit. Also, the fact that he's mostly a man corner.
Yeah.
I I mean, there's no way for us to know until we see the team play next year. We don't know what they're going to do on defense. Is it man, zone, both? I don't know. I've seen Carroll get good to great stuff out of cheap, low drafted corners consistently. So for me to use a top 10 pick on a corner, I need him to be an all pro, not a pro bowler. I need him to be an all pro.
Right. I can't have questions about, I can't have these questions I'm asking about him if I'm picking him there.
Yeah. You know, it kind of makes me think of Sean Wade. Sean Wade had a really nice freshman year, I think, at Ohio State, and looked like a first-round pick, and then it never got together, and he ended up like a fourth-round pick or something.
Oh, the tape was rough last year. I still remember Wade's tape, as I just sat there and I was just like, this is, people were trying to hype him up, and I'm like, dude, this is horrible. I mean, it was just really rough tape on the last side. So yeah, I can't either. And there's one guy, one corner we'll talk about in a second here. There's only one though that I would be willing here to do this.
Okay, so next guy, Andrew Booth Jr. from Clemson, roughly the same size as Derek Stingley Jr. This guy also more of a man corner, but he is considered to be scheme versatile. Not a great tackler, but he is excellent in man coverage, excellent outside corner prospect. How about Andrew Booth? How do you feel?
Third corner on my board. I do have him a little bit behind Stingley because Stingley's tape pops more than his tape pops, though his tape's really good. He's, to me, a guy should be picked in the 20s. He's a first round cornerback, definitely, but not top 10 first round. And I was on him early on this, but he was initially looked at as like a third, fourth round guy before the valuation process really kicked in. But I really liked his tape even early on. He jumped off. So he has definitely earned that mark to jump ahead of, let's say, for instance, McDuffie on that list of things. And I love Booth's game is really nice. He's a good player, but to me, late teens, 20.
Okay, fair enough. I can get, but I'm going to have to, I haven't had a chance to dig super deep into the corners yet. I'm kind of going from the offense to the defense.
Totally. No, it's a good way to go.
I feel you. All right, so we got one more guy who is getting top 10 hype, and people in my chat and people in my Discord love this guy. From Cincinnati, another Cincinnati product. Oh, yeah. 6'3", 190 pounds, Ahmad Sauce Gardner. Kind of made out of clay by Pete Carroll to play in his zone defense. Great prospect for his zone corner. Could be the next Richard Sherman. He's a guy who I think has a very good chance of being what I need a top 10 corner to be in this defense, which is not just one of the best zone corners in the league, but the best. So, Sauce Gardner, are you getting him at number 9 overall? How do you feel?
He is the one, and to like your point on this, I'm aware of Carroll's track record. I'm aware of him getting out better out of less with the cornerback situation. Hell, even Richard Sherman was a 5th round pick. So you just haven't had to do this in this way. But there's always exceptions to the rule, Brennan. No rule is hard and fast to where you never deviate it from. And if you're going to go outside the rule of thumb, there's got to be a great reason, and this is the great reason. I don't throw around Richard Sherman comparisons lightly. I don't think that there's any corners in the last few years have come out that have any echoes of Sherman's game. He was so unique in having the size he did and the smarts he did, his reaction ability in zone to jump routes and read what was coming. Ahmad's got that in his game. He looks like Sherman in the way he plays the off-zone coverage, in the way he drives on balls, and the way he reads the quarterback's eyes, in how he sort of beats up on those receivers, and he's just physical without being super grabby, which is a lot of what you see from these corners at the college game is they get very grabby. Then you get the fact that he's a 4.4 guy, where Sherman was like a 4.6 guy. And that speed is there on tape. You're not running by him. He will run step for step, and he's got go gadget arms to then anything late coming in to knock away. You said clay. That's absolutely right. This is exactly what Carroll goes to bed at night dreaming of a cornerback built with this build and the speed and the recognition abilities that you require for a zone-based corner. It is a skill set. It is. This is why man guys might struggle in zone. You've got to do certain things that are different than what you're doing in man. He can probably still even play a little bit of band with his feet. His 6'3" size does not inhibit his ability to flip his hips. I'm as excited about him as any prospect in this draft, quite frankly. And I think he would be a marvelous corner for it and worth it from my standpoint to break the rule of thumb. Worth it.
By the way, Sauce Gardner, 33.5-inch arms, an inch and a half longer than Richard Sherman, so he's got that part on lockdown.
Every bit. That's what I'm saying. The clay thing's that's the right word to use, Brendon, because it's like clay. It's like, I want 33-inch long arms. I want 6'3". I want 4.4 speed. I want ability to read zone. I want him playing basically a lot of cover 3. Like, this is Carroll. This is a cloth that he's cut. This is exactly what he would want. And I could see him totally being gravitated towards Gardner. And because of the fact he is kind of a zone-based corner, it's no guarantee he's taken in those top 8 picks. It's, he may be the far and away by a lot of people's draft boards, the best corner in their draft, but if they're a man-based system, which I think there's at least a couple teams above us here in this draft that are man-based systems and what they run defensively, that's going to help us maybe with him dropping. Where are you at with him?
All right. Yeah. I think I would break the rule for him. I would still be like, man, you better be special. You better be a future Hall of Famer. Like, if you make the Pro Bowl 4 times in your career, I'm still going to be like, that the best you can do, buddy? You got to be an all-pro. You got to be the Sherman. You got to do what Sherman did. But I think with him, I would do it.
Yeah.
I do think I would. And by the way, we did it. We got to 9, by the way. We are now at 9.
Ooh.
So we made it.
Yeah. Here we go.
And there's really only one more guy to talk about, and I don't think we can really take him that seriously at this point, but Kyle Hamilton, maybe the best overall player in this draft, but can we really do that? I don't think so.
I mean, it will sting Brendon. It will sting very bad if we're sitting at 9 and he falls to us at 9 and we can't take him because we took. That's going to hurt. I'm not going to lie to you, Brendon. That one's going to hurt a little bit. That'll burn. But he's my number 2 player on my board. I've got Hutchinson, then he's number 2. He is his safety tape is the funnest to watch in the last 4 or 5 years of anybody coming out in the draft, outside of maybe Winfield Jr. And he might even have him. He has even Winfield beat. Winfield, his tape beat. So he's awesome. If you ever get a chance, he's got just a lot to his skill set.
Yeah, but there's just no way we can do it unless we're going to unveil this revolutionary
3 safety look, baby. 3 safety look.
Well, yeah, on offense we could do like a 3 offensive lineman look.
Hey,
right?
It'd be forward thinking. You know what I mean? Like, and Hamilton's big enough. Damn, the guy's 6'4". You can have him come up and play some linebacker. Have him and Jamal interchange off the will. Something like that. I don't know. Get creative with it. It would burn, Brendon. It would sting. It would be very much, and it would be just like kind of we've seen things play out here recently, where you arrive at that draft and you get that guy falling for whatever reason, and But I think he does go. I think the Texans, they lost Justin Reed to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to land in there, I think, at that number 3 pick for them. There's not the quarterback in this draft from at that point. I think they end up taking him at number 3 there. So I think
All right. So let's just big board it real quick just for fun. The 9 guys that we listed.
Okay.
So the 9 guys we got. Number 1. Okay, we got Ekwonu, Cross, Neal, Linderbaum, Karlaftis, Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Johnson, Gardner.
Yeah.
So who's number 1? Probably Hutch.
Hutch, number 1.
Okay.
Did you have Hamilton on that list, or we're just keeping Hamilton off?
No, not Hamilton, because it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. So yeah, I go Hutchinson 1. I would go. I'd go Cross number 2 on my list.
Me too.
That's
what I was going to do as well.
Yeah, he's to me he's just better, and I like him on that. I would go Gardner number 3.
Really?
I'd go
interesting.
I'd go Gardner.
I would have said Thibodeau, but you're right about the Gardner stuff, man. That's just so tough.
Well, your point about him needing to be this and that, right? Like, yeah, you're right. He does. And the thing with Kayvon Thibodeau, you could apply that same logic to him. And if I do, I don't have that same certainty that I do with Gardner. So it does push me then to Gardner a little bit over Thibodeau at that point.
Okay. All right. So Gardner number 3. Who's number 4? Would that be Ekwonu or Thibodeau?
Ekwonu my number 4.
Okay. And then we have number 5, Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson, Karlaftis, Linderbaum, and Evan Neal. I feel like Thibodeau should go here.
Yeah, Thibodeau kind of feels right. Boy, it's hard to turn down Karlaftis, but you mentioned the good point earlier about where you're putting Karlaftis in this defense first. I know Thibodeau can stand up and do it, so we'll go Thibodeau.
Okay, number 6. Do we go Karlaftis here? It's either him or Evan Neal in
I
my
know. I'm
estimation.
torn. I'm torn on this one. Probably Neal. You need offensive line help, so let's go for the
Yeah.
need on this one as the separator.
All right. So the three guys left are Jermaine Johnson, Karlaftis, and Linderbaum.
Karlaftis, Johnson, Linderbaum would be your order of.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
We did it. And honestly, there's a real good chance one quarterback goes in the top 10. There's a real good chance Hamilton goes in the top 10. So we are probably looking at least three of these guys being available when we pick.
Yeah. One more reason, Brendon, why it may be hard too to pick to trade back into 15 or 16. Linderbaum, if they're targeting him, but let's take him out. It may be also, though, that if they don't want to trade back, where they go, well, if we got to trade back to 16 and we've got a group of three guys in the pocket right here at 9, those three guys will be gone by the time we might get to 16 at that point, especially if we know who those teams are going to be picking and you usually have a pretty good, intelligent spot of what you think they'll be doing ahead of you at that point. That may preclude them from moving up, and you may just want to stand pat and take the best guy available on the board. I think that's as much as I think they want to trade back, Brendon, my bold prediction is that they end up standing pat and just making the selection because of the way these tiers break out.
Okay, well, let's think about that for a second. Let's say you trade back, but let's say you don't want to trade back so far you lose out on the opportunity to get any of those guys. Let's say you want to trade down with the Minnesota Vikings at number 12.
Yes.
So you would give up number 9. They would give you 12. You would add a third round pick from the Vikings and probably send back one of your 5th round picks. That would be fairly close to even.
Sure.
You're doing that?
I would do that, yeah, because you're only going to 12 at that point. That's 3 spots. So, okay, so they do that. The Vikings aren't going to take one of the edge rushers at that point, right? They just signed. For instance, they signed Zadarius Smith. They got Hunter coming back. So you still have edge rushers as your backup plan that we just talked about, right? Your Karlaftis or even a Travon Walker type. Like if you're talking about trading back and adding a 3rd round pick, I can start to embrace that a little bit more. Because of that, there's a lot of those top end rushers that are all in the same gamut that you're then being able to pick. The Vikings are probably going to go for cornerback at that spot. So if it's Stingley, for instance, and they end up being the ones that pull the trigger on Stingley, then now you have the Jets and the Washington football team. So it's a little bit about what are those two teams do? What are those teams doing up ahead of us with those picks? What is, is Washington going to, try to maybe grab a quarterback? Do I know that they maybe take a look at Pickett? And if I do so, then that's going to push me to trade back. But I can't do it blindly where Schneider's not certain of what those teams are going to do ahead of him, especially if it's one of these targeted guys in their tier 1 group. He can't risk losing out on tier 1 to get cute to trade back, miss out on tier 1 so that now he has one extra tier 2 guy. And it's like, well, but you don't get that top end talent. So I'd have to do that. I think the Vikings one would be fine, but I don't think, Brendon, you're going to go back more than 3 picks. I think if you go to 15, 16, you are now resoundingly out of tier 2 at tier 1. And I think the NFL teams are pretty much in a consensus on this of who the true tier 1 guys are in this draft, because of the fact that there's so few of them, Brendon. What I'm reading and hearing about is that there's just not many of them. So it's like, it's very clean and easy to say this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. There's not a lot of difference of opinion there.
Right. I agree with that. I think that here's the thing. There are a lot of teams that pick ahead of us that might reach for the quarterback if they have a guy they like. You have the Lions, maybe the Texans. I don't know what they think about Davis Mills. Let's say they stick with Davis Mills, though. You've still got the Giants, you've got the Panthers, and you've got the Falcons. All those teams could very reasonably take a quarterback. So if we get to our pick and Willis, Pickett, and Ridder's
dropping it. Ritter's starting to rise to the boards. People are starting to catch up with my evaluation on this guy. Cleanest quarterback prospect in this draft. I'm not saying he's going to be a star, but he's the most pro ready, and he's the best quarterback in this entire class. Just my opinion.
If the quarterbacks in this class were in the draft last year, do you think any of them would be 1st round picks? I don't either. God, it would be so gross to end up with a 2nd round guy with a top 5 pick.
Somebody might have done the Lamar Jackson with Malik Willis. Somebody might have looked at the Ravens and look, they're thinking outside the box. They're trying not to pay the quarterback. They're trying to use up their 1st round, and they're sitting at 28 or 29, and maybe they have an aging quarterback that they got I could see that, but outside of that, no way.
Okay. All right. Okay. I know you already kind of poo-pooed this, but The Philadelphia, the Eagles trade. Let's just talk it through here real quick. In
Okay.
terms of pick value, you would give number 9 to Philly, and they would give you 16, and they would throw in number 51 overall. So you're saying you're not doing that?
Let me look at this really quickly and see what they're like. So like I think that the Ravens are a big Jordan Davis goes there. You're giving the Eagles one pick. You're giving the Eagles 2 picks ahead of you at that point, which then is going to make it hard to predict what the Eagles are going to necessarily do unless they tell you what their 2 picks are. So I would be okay maybe with that, Brendon, because of that, right? You're going from 9 to 15, but I know if the Eagles are telling me here's what our picks are going to be, then that might make it a little bit more of an open door to do that. But if I'm Schneider, I've got to be on the horn with these teams and at least have a general understanding of where they're leaning towards. If I can figure that out, but if I got to do a blind, Brendon, you're talking about I'm making that trade to 16 blind. God, I'd love to be able to know that I've got Linderbaum sitting there at 16, Brendon. That's my thing, right? Like if I know Linderbaum's sitting there, I'm like, I can pull that trigger and go, I know. And that's the one position within that group. It may be harder to predict with the edge rushers and some of the other spots, but you can make more of the prediction down the line with those 3 or 4 teams ahead of you at 9, picking going, okay, the Eagles have Jason Kelsey, right? So there's no way they're going back to center there. So you can make a little more of the intelligent, if Seattle owns up to taking a center with that first round pick, which I mean, who knows, right? I mean, who knows if they've got the stones to do that? Or if they look at it like center schmenner, they did do a second round pick on Posick a couple years ago. So I mean, they valued it before. They have put something.
I've actually started looking at some late round center prospects after Linderbaum. It falls off a cliff though. Like I'm not that impressed with anybody.
No, they're all projects.
Maybe Lindstrom, but even then, it's like not that interesting. It's okay.
Yeah. He's a 3rd round center guy to me. The guy that they've met with, Cole Strange, he's got like the same combine scores as an Austin Blythe that they signed. He's kind of a similar player, which I'm not, Blythe is what he is, right? So
yeah. To me, Cole Strange is more of a guard, honestly. I look at him and I see guard more than center, but we'll see.
I mean, maybe he doesn't. I'll tell you this: he gets blown in the backfield a lot, and you put him up against maybe as a left guard, but he's definitely got to get some strength in there to hold up the point of attack because bigger guys are going to just blow him away a little bit. I think as far as some of the tape I watch, he can move in space, he can do that, the mobile stuff, but he's got strong hands. But there's times where those guys just walk him backwards. So yeah, to me, that's why I like the Linderbaum too, though, is he's so clean. You know what he's going to be. He's going to walk in dead. And then you've got an interior that's, even though your tackle situation is miserable, Brendon, from a run blocking standpoint with Gabe Jackson, Damian Lewis, and Linderbaum, you do have a group that should be able to create some holes up front. And we know that Carroll loves his A-gap runs. We know he loves to run right over the butt of that center. So, I mean, you would at least maybe be able to open up the run game a little bit more going that route too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one last trade scenario that I want to run past you.
All right.
You send number 9 to Philly. They give you number 16 this year and their first round pick next year. Would you? That way you have 3 first round picks in 2023. Yeah. Yours, Denver's, and Philly's. Yeah. Are you kicking this can down the road?
Yeah, you better believe I am. I still get a pick in the first round this year, and I get a first round pick next year. Yeah. 100%, Brendon. Yeah.
That would be approximately equivalent value because the picks lose like a round worth of value for every year you push it out. So that would be about what it takes.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners had to give up 2 first rounders and number 12 overall to move up 9 spots to get Trey Lance, right? So it's pretty much equivalent.
No, it's your value's right on that. Eagles might be willing to do that because they're looking at themselves as a contender, and if they think of them in that realm, we're fringe contender, but we just need a couple of these top end guys we can add to the mix to get us to true contender. Whereas I love that because there's a good chance with the Eagles that they just totally kind of maybe they're not going to be bad next year, but to me, it's not a guarantee that they get back to the playoffs next year. They kind of squeaked in just because we fell off last year and the rest of the NFC kind of fell off, and the NFC East is a crap show, but I'm all over that. If we can get a future first round pick and making a trade in this draft, I'm going to be pretty open to that, even if it's going past the tier 1 of these guys in this particular draft, because I think that you're just setting the stage right. You're getting all the guys in on those rookie deals at the right time, not paying anybody at that point. It's kind of like You're setting the stage appropriate. You're building the rebuild right. You're taking that slow process we talked about, the trust the process, the 76ers approach, right? You're kind of doing that. And I'd be in favor of that. I'd applaud. What about you?
I would, if we do that, I'm going to every Seahawks home game this year to try to get the chance going to get Carroll fired. So that way the new front office can come in next year and inherit those 3 picks. That would be exciting. Little less excited if it's Carroll and Schneider making them, but in terms of raw value, I'm doing it.
Oh, you imagine the coach you could recruit? Hey, we got $130 million in cap space. We have 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. You're going to have ownership coming in within another year that's going to be completely spending all the money in the world because they're going to want to impress. And there'll probably be a local person like a Bezos or a Ballmer type that was born here or raised here at least. If you want to come in, if you find that attractive as a head coaching possibility.
But to your point that you said earlier, you're going to have to work hard to get Pete and John out of here because I don't think Jody wants to do anything like that. You're going to have to force her hand.
Yeah.
So if things go poorly, be ready to act.
I mean, if she has an intention to sell within 2 years, the team, if you're in her position and you're an owner in that place, you've got a guy, Carroll, that your brother hired. It's a legacy hire who's won a Super Bowl here. And you look at that situation and you go, do I want to fire him, pay him? And then I have to undertake the process of having my people hire the new guy just before I'm about to sell the team. And does that help or hurt the value of them selling the team? I would think it probably hurts the value of the team, even though Carroll's star is not at its brightest. So I keep coming back to, I don't think that moves the needle for her and gets her to waver on that. And, so we're stuck. We're stuck.
Yeah, we'll see. A few people in my chat have pointed out that apparently Carroll lost one of his titles. They didn't make a big announcement out of it. Apparently lost his God, what was it? Apparently he lost one of his titles on the website. Yeah, and people are using that as proof that like, oh, he's on the hot seat. I'm not convinced. Yeah. But it is noteworthy that he doesn't have that title anymore. That has to mean something.
I mean, let's short. You're right. I mean, it is something. And they did the fact that they released that low key, and we thought about this. They wouldn't sit like do a media blitz about that. Carroll got himself demoted. Like no one, they would do this in the background behind closed doors. But this placates Jody from her mind thinking, well, I'm doing something, right? I talked to him and he said he's going to fire the defensive coordinator and they're going to trade Russell and then he's going to give over seat over control because that's where things have been going wrong. And she's going to want to believe that there's a pathway to a solution that's something outside of her having to fire Carroll and then bring in somebody new and go through that whole rigmarole. So it's kind of like confirmation bias where she's going to hear what she wants to hear from him. And he had it. Look, to his credit, it's obvious that they had some backup plan of, okay, I'm going to cede something over to you. I'm going to give a little control over to you, John, and then we'll kick out Norton, and then we'll get this to sign. We'll look really active. We'll look really busy. We'll sign a lot of guys in free agency, and we'll look like we're doing stuff. But but it's kind of a smoke and mirrors presentation too, just a little bit.
Yeah. I guess only time will tell, and none of it matters if we're actually decent this year. Which this defense has a chance to be decent. I don't know about the rest of it, but.
There's again that theory with it where I read you those numbers where look, not a lot of teams running defense, not a lot of teams are getting the playoffs playing defense, but there's also that thought process here, Brendon. There's that like genius, like, I'm trying to touch on this, like this genius like thing within that, like this genius pearl within this particular oyster or whatever of if you do tap this right and you do create that defense that way where it's just dogs across the board and you're going so heavy defensively where it's just offset those offenses and the way the rules are bent towards them to excel, where you break that rule, it could be just that brilliant. We're not counting on it. It's hard to see it, but it is a potential. It is a potential that you've got. I mean, look at the defensive line now. I mean, it's a deep rotation. You've got 4 or 5 defensive tackles. I'm sure they're going to add another pass rushers into this mix. You're paying the safeties. You got the corner, I could see it. It's going to be hard to get there. I'm not buying on it. I wouldn't go this approach with it, but is it possible? Sure. It's possible.
Yeah, I suppose so. Okay, one more trade proposition before we end today. I think before we end the draft talk. Okay, we have back-to-back picks in the second round. Would you give up both of them for a mid-first round pick?
Yes. Yeah.
Really? I don't know if I would.
Wait. First like a future first round pick?
No. In this draft. So, for instance.
No. I'm not trading up. No trading up.
Not even in the second round.
No trading up. Nope. We only trade back. It's only when we're doing this draft, and even trading back in those in the tier 1 and tier group, which is 1 first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick. I'm gonna be protective of like it's a newborn baby. Okay. I'm keeping him in the incubator. You're not touching him. I'm not moving it. And if I'm gonna move off, if I'm touching the baby in the incubator, I better get a whole lot for that. So no way I'm moving up in this particular draft. That's a nightmare approach from my standpoint of things. Stay where you are. You're in the money side of this draft in that tier 2 with 3 picks in tier 2. This is right where the sweet spot is on the baseball bat. So just square it up. Put the meat of the bat on the ball and put it out. And that means don't get cute, John. Don't go weird. Don't go back of the second round to pick up a 4th-round pick or something. Pick up in that high second-round point. You're getting the best of the tier 2 guys there, truly, truly. I hope they do, Brendon, because no. How about you?
I wouldn't do it either. I have way too many fantasies in my head of getting like Boy Mafe and
Yeah.
Logan Hall back-to-back picks in the second round. I think that would put your defense in a great position for a long time. Or you even double dip and get Ebiketie and Mafe. Right. Now, I know you already have Darrell Taylor, but you need more than 2 outside linebackers.
Stack them up, Brendon. You need a rotation and let the best man win, right? At that point, you're going to have whoever gets out in that field's had to fight through to get there. He ain't just been given an open door path like we've been doing recently where, you're the starter and you're the starter and then you're the backup. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, that is pretty much the first half of my dream mock draft that I'm putting together. Got number 9, Charles Cross.
Okay.
Second round, Mafe and Ebiketie. Third round, Carson Strong. That's the first half of like my best case scenario. I'm really, really happy with the first 2 days mock draft.
I'm really good with that. I think I'll be as much open in this draft. Maybe it's because we have as many needs as we have with where their selections will probably fall, unless they just go really far outside the box. So they go LJ Collier outside the box and where they're picking to where the truly guy should go. But I think I'll be lining there because there's so many good players here that get me excited in this draft in that especially in that tier 2 group that you talk about, Brendon. Like there's just a lot of guys in there that you go, yeah, I'd like that guy. That guy's, I feel great about him. I like his tape. He's exciting. He's got some, there's some potential there. You can see if he can tap into doing this, Ebiketie, if he can get that cross face as lethal as he does on the college team, where like there's times on his tape where he crosses the face of the tackle and there's nothing the tackle can do about it. He'll do it in the run game. He'll do it in the pass game where it's amazing. It's like almost at will, he's going to get across you to the front side, which is usually those guys have to set the tackles up wide to then cross face him to the inside. They got to get him over setting. He doesn't need to. It's just he's like this little motor move right up into the backfield to get penetration. And they've all got that Mafe with the same kind of weird freakish skills he's got to his game to get off, and some of his just he's got a little freakish strength to him for his size and his build. Fun players, Brendon. A lot of fun players in this draft.
Yeah, the guys you're going to be able to get at 40 and 41, you could almost do a dartboard and just throw a dart at the board, and I'll be happy with it. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker Jr., I like both those guys a lot. Even like a Desmond Ridder, if he's still there, I'm not in love with his arm, but a second round, I might be okay with that. Yeah. Travis Jones, the nose tackle that we apparently really, really like. I like him in the second round too. There even a couple of middle linebackers would be okay. So I really like that area of the draft. I don't want to lose my picks there.
No. And I do wonder if my wonder in that question to you be, I think safety and defensive tackle, I think right now, because right now defensive tackle, Quinn Jefferson, Poona Ford, Brian Monet, Al Woods, and Shelby Harris, who would be a 3 tech or what defensive end, whatever you want to call them on that. That's 5, and you usually run with 3. Do we think defensive tackle is really a possibility in this draft from where they've built this roster? I mean, I love Travis Jones. I do love the possibility of him.
Well, I'm looking at it in terms of like some of those guys are defensive ends in this defense, right? Like Shelby Harris is going to be a defensive end in 3-4 looks at least. Quentin Jefferson probably as well. Honestly, I don't view him as a nose at all.
No.
To me, the only guys on that list who are nose tackles are Monet and Al Woods. Even like Poona is too small for me to be a nose tackle in all likelihood.
Yes.
And he's not like a Jay Ratliff. He's not somebody who's going to get 9 stacks from the nose tackle spot. So I'm looking at it like that. Also, Brian Monet is making literally league minimum. So fully non-guaranteed. He can go like that if you find somebody who's actually like a plus player. Brian Monet is a warm body. That's about it.
And you can make the argument of Travis Jones, by the way, that he's not going to be drafted higher, but you could make the argument he's a better player than Jordan Davis. off of the film that he put out. I mean, his film's better than Davis's film.
Yeah, if Pittsburgh didn't need a quarterback so bad, I actually think they might take him in the first round.
Yeah. Oh, he's a Pittsburgh player. That's a great put there, because he's absolutely what Pittsburgh would look for in a player. He's got that same kind of big build, bully build that he's got to him in his game. So yeah, that'd be interesting. Well, I think these are some good targets we've got here, Brendon, on spots. We will draw this forward, I think, and do definitely some mock drafts. I'd love to do that in the future on this kind of thing.
Yeah, I figure next week we should probably start digging into like the day 2 and day 3 guys.
Okay.
So we'll definitely talk about them.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. We'll see if we've got maybe a little quarterback update as far as what they decide to do there, and if there's any other kind of roster moves. Anything in percolating else for you as far as Seahawks land that on your mind or that you've been turning over?
Not necessarily. I can't think of too much going on right now. It's just like kind of. I'm excited for this draft, though. I'm actually excited. It's the first time in a long time we've had an asset like this to use in the draft, and I am interested to see how they utilize it. But I right now, nothing in particular. I am kind of thinking back to last week when we got the report that we wanted a veteran quarterback, and a lot of the veteran quarterbacks are now off the board. We're kind of down to Baker and Garoppolo, and at that point, you're talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He's just waiting on Darnold, man. He's just waiting on Darnold. That's all that's going on. He's just laying in the weeds right now. He knows Darnold's going to come up at some point. You know, he's been flirting with him for years here. Carroll just wants his Darnold. He wants his USC guy.
I'm okay with that. He's a great tank commander. You're going to go 2-15 with him, and
that's right. He will guarantee us that great quarterback of the future. So sign me up there. One quick question. We do have the Packers and Chiefs right now. Obviously, all their fan bases are circling. You're going to see it in your chat. I'm already getting my chat, which they're circling they're trying to pick us. They're trying to pick our carcass clean with the DK stuff. 3rd round pick, Tyler Lockett, to either the Packers or the Chiefs. You sign off on that?
I need to do a little better because they're not going to be paying him very much money. Apparently, like his base is $3 million this year. You got to do a little bit better for me. And by the way, like in the case of the Packers, especially, that is a team that is desperate. You can definitely work them a little bit.
Yeah. So if we're walking away with a 2nd round pick, you're going to be happy. And I would love that if we get a 2nd round pick for Tyler.
And
I don't know.
It's the Packers. They're going to pick probably like in the very bottom of the 2nd round.
It's true. It is. I know they did have well, it's still late. It's still late 2nd round because they did get that 2nd round. They have 2 2nd round picks too, to your point on this, from the Raiders trade with Devontae. So you do have that as well, where maybe you're able to get that one of those 2 2nd round picks, and they're more willing to cough it up because of that. But that'd be sure nice if we could take advantage of that situation with their needs and not.
Yeah. Did you see they lost a Marquez Valdez-Scantling?
Oh, they're down. Brendon, they're down. They have 2 slot receivers, and they have Alan Lazard, an outside blocking wide receiver, basically, is their outside guy. To say they're desperate is to undersell it hugely. So to me, it fits a lot. Tyler's a great route runner. He would fit really well with what Aaron Rodgers does in his game. I could see the Packers doing it, especially the connection between Schneider and that front office there. But I imagine how interesting this draft would get with 3 2nd round picks and a 1st round. I mean, oh my God.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that Lockett extension was probably a mistake. We need to try to do something to bail ourselves out of it if this is the path we're going to go down.
If he's not a fit for the offense, he's not fit for the offense. And at the end of the day, that's the bottom line on it with Lockett. Whether you sign him to a contract extension or not, you need your guys at the receiver position to block, down block on defensive ends, to be good yak guys. That's the basis of this situation here. And you don't draft guys that aren't good at those, or hold on to guys that aren't good at that because they've been really productive players. I love Tyler, but just it's not quite a fit for what you need to do here at the receiver position. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with it, Brendon. We may have a trade come down the pike here in the next week. But thank you today for going long. We went over well over 2 hours. We had over 300 people here in the chat today, though. That was awesome, Brendon, as you're seeing lately. We've had a lot of
we're probably going to go really late next week because we're going to be digging into all sides of the draft. We're going to go long on, and I know you're probably more into it than even I am.
I do. I get it. Yeah. I'm every day I'm usually trying to go like 3 players. I'm doing a couple of games of their film and then just breaking it down, because with YouTube, you can do like Georgia offense and just watch all the snaps offensively of a team for a whole game in like 20 minutes. So you're just able to chew up the tape so much faster going through and looking at these guys. But yeah, we're gonna get into it. This is the geeky time of year, Brendon. That's why I stream all 3 days, hours and hours every day, because I love it on draft day, man. I just geek out on this time of year. It's my second Christmas.
All right. All right.
All right.
Well,
Well, thank you, folks, for tuning on in. Please do hit that like button if you like what you're listening to. And don't forget as well, Seahawks Brendon Nelson, if you're not already on over there, go over to Seahawks Brendon Nelson's channel. It's Seahawks Brendon Nelson. Subscribe to his channel over there. We do this weekly. I'm going to be on his side of the fence here next Thursday on his channel, and he's over here the week after. So we go every week on this at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. But please do subscribe to him, as well as hit that like button. Thank you to Randall and all the rest of the folks in here, Amy Kimball, for donating as you did. Very kind of you folks to do. We appreciate you. Tune in again here next week. Thank you so much. But do not forget, never forget, go Hawks.
go Hawks.